Why don't we state our names for the...
Ed Bouchard, City Council member.
Adam Hagan, Community Development.
Jay Kavanaugh, Alderman.
Zach Fruink, Mayor.
Scott Kelly, Alderman. Tom Laus, Community Media.
Shane Blazer, Alderman.
Tom Rayon, Alderman, District 4.
Joe Zerflu, Alderperson. Item number 2, review and discuss 2019 budget and departmental budget requests with a focus on reviewing the River City's community access and community development budgets. And you want to go first, Tim?
Yeah, I just, as I handed out today, and I'll email you the PDF of this document, but this is the 2019 budget summary for the executive budget, which basically takes all those departmental budgets and displays them in a comparative format based on the fund that they're in. We have general fund, special revenue funds, capital project type funds, and it also shows some of the funding sources for those expenditures. And I just, we'll start with some of the funding sources. The tax levy increased approximately $138,000, which page 20, well, you'll see in the comparative summary. And I guess I should just say something about the budget summary on page 1. It sometimes can be a little misleading because the 2018 budget is amended, and that is amended for carryover type items. In the spring of each year, we do a carryover resolution for depreciation accounts and things like that. Or if we have a project that's not finished, we'll amend that year's budget and add that. So 2018 kind of contains some of those items, and 2019 is just based on this year or the next year's without those carryover appropriations. So sometimes the comparative on this page can be a little misleading. So just want to caution you that. And if you see something and there's a question, either look into you can look at the major, everything is broken out by major category throughout the budget, or if you have a question about a specific category, let me know and I can kind of explain some of the differences to that. And you'll see on property taxes, $138,000. The other increase fee was the stormwater utility fee is proposed to be increased from $33 per ERU to $35.04 per ERU in the stormwater utility fund.
How does that fall in with other communities? Any idea?
That I don't know that offhand of which ones have that.
Share some information on that. Yeah, I know we looked a couple years ago and we looked at the rate. But yeah, we can share that.
Thank you.
And so basically, your ERU is equivalent residential unit. So usually a resident is assessed 1 unit, based on their impervious material or impervious surface area. And so then that would be a $35 annual charge. And if you want to ask about the 4 cents on there, we have to do it so it's evenly divisible by 12 because it's billed on the monthly utility bill. So,
and one note on that I think it's important to note is that's it's one of those equitable, I guess, fees that we can charge from the standpoint that it goes to exempt property tax or property owners, and obviously they're exempt from property taxes, so it's a pretty equitable way to apply, especially as we try to cover more of the utility replacement work from the stormwater utility, for example, instead of the tax levy primarily funding that source. So I think it's every year trying to do a little bit more of that, and this is one of those flexible ways we can do that.
One of the fairer ones out there.
Yeah, right. I think that's another way of saying it.
Yep. And if you turn to page 29 with that, with the property tax levy, and this shows the calculation of the tax rates. The other taxing jurisdictions are just estimates at this time. I have not gotten their final certified levy letters yet. But if you notice in Wisconsin Rapids, it's showing a decrease of about 49 cents per thousand, or 4% decrease in the tax rate. And that's attributed a lot to the reassessment we have. So obviously our assessed value went up, so it's translated into a reduction in the tax rate.
But their bills at that rate will remain consistent, correct?
What?
The bills, the tax bills?
As far as?
If their assessment went up.
Oh, it depends on,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I mean, reassessments are always difficult because
They go,
based on the class of property, some go up higher than others, and so it really depends on what type of class of property you have and what was the previous value in relation to the new market value. So
yeah.
things like that. So
And I don't think we really have an idea of what the borrowing of other taxing jurisdiction looks like. I haven't heard school district or any of that. I haven't followed a lot of their meetings. I know generally they have late meetings in terms of the budget season. They have one meeting. They don't have a series of them like we.
Yeah, so we should be getting that. So, obviously, you go through if you want to go through kind of just page and just can kind of just give you a general overview so when you're looking at this. On page 3 is the general fund, and these are basically, general fund accounts for a lot of your just department operations, and these are just summaries of the departmental budgets that you have in your department budget requests document that you received earlier. So this is just basically laying those out in a comparative manner. If you look down, let's see, and then so everything pretty much matches up what's in the comparative budgets. One note on the contingency, that is just an estimated amount for cost of living adjustments and health insurance estimated adjustments. July 1, we'll get a renewal with a renewal rate with Aspirus, and so at that time we'll determine what that is, but I estimate and put that into the budget. So I don't think there's really much on the expenditure side because we're discussing those as we go through the departmental budgets. On page 6 shows the funding sources for the general fund. One thing I just want to point out on page 6, general property tax, you'll see a decrease of $386,000. What that is attributed to is because last year for the EMS fund and the equipment replacement fund, we did not levy in those specific funds for that. Instead, we showed a transfer from the general fund to those funds, and then we showed the tax levy in the general fund. So this year, to kind of be a little bit more transparent in those funds and what levy is for, we're levying those dollars in there. So the taxes in the general fund are reduced and then an offset on the transfer to those funds. And then you'll see in those funds increase in the tax levy for that. So I just, if you see a $386,000 decrease in property tax in the general fund, it's because of that accounting change or like that. So, and then it just shows the various payment in lieu of taxes and the other taxes we get, licenses and permits, some changes there. Intergovernmental revenues, as you'll see in general transportation aids, we lost about $38,743. It's a funding formula based on a 6-year average, and it's on and basically what it is it's the weighted average, and based on how your expenditures come up to the whole, your weighted average of that. They hold you harmless to a 15% reduction, I do believe, in that formula. It's one of those formulas that doesn't make a lot of sense to me because communities that are growing at a more rapid pace are putting in more infrastructure, more roads, have more qualifying expenditures, take a bigger piece of the pie, and communities that maybe are growing at a less pace actually get penalized, but then they're actually creating the tax base that they can use that to offset some of that, so they kind of get the double bonus on that. It just doesn't, it's a hard formula. I know the league has looked at sometimes trying to address that formula, but obviously it's a difficult one to tackle politically.
Municipalities that are growing new roads are loving it, right? Because they've got an influx of cash.
You'll see down there a new state aid personal property exemption, property tax exemption. That's the amount that was on Schedule C, I do believe, on the personal property that they exempted, and the state is making us whole on that, so they're giving us that. But then they're also
computers though?
No, it's the personal property tax, manufacturing equipment, I do believe. But where they give us this aid, they also make it subtracted off our tax levy. So we get an increase here, but you can't, then you got to subtract it off your levy. So put that out. So as you can see, kind of overall, I just want to point out the Wood County Library aid. I know the McMillan Library applied to the county for additional funding this year based on their, and I've not heard if they were granted that yet or not either. Scott, do you know if they
I think they have.
They have?
I believe so.
Okay. So, and then they utilize some of those fundings for their building maintenance, books and periodicals, and computers in their budget. So if you look at the McMillan Library budget, you'll see some increases in those operating line items. But if you take out that and the personal property, we had a reduction in state aids that we receive on an annual basis. Special assessment revenue, that's just an estimate based on, hard thing about special assessment revenue is from an accounting standpoint, you can't recognize the revenue until you actually receive it. So when you do a billing, some people pay it all all in one chunk. Some people take a 5, 10, 15 years. So I have to kind of do an estimate. And I have like a calculation based on a 5-year average of what I feel we're going to collect on that, and then budget accordingly. The one good news is obviously our interest. If you see investment income is up $125,000. Obviously the interest rate environment is favorable for investing right now. That I think our LGIP is up to 2%. I remember it wasn't too long ago when we were 20 basis points. So the nice thing about having strong reserves is it generates an income that can help the budget on an annual basis. So we're seeing a nice jump in investment earnings there. Charges for service. I think the only thing real big change there was the landfill surcharge. Basically, we're trending up a little bit in that, so we were able to project out a little bit more revenue in that. So, and then you'll see in fund balance on page 8, other financing resources. You'll see fund balance applied general fund of $669,000. Historically, we apply about $200,000 of our reserves to our budget to offset our operations. The other part of that, the $434,000 difference there, that is using reserves to pay for the new garbage bins, as far as the new single pass, is that what they call it?
Yeah.
Garbage collection system. So that, and then the library applies $20,000 of their reserves. Now you'll see in their fund balance applied non-lapsing. What I will do is before the public hearing, and I'll give you a list, is I try to estimate some of the carryovers we're going to have. I don't have it included in the document right now, but for certain accounts, like the library carries over some, we have fire equipment. What I'll do is I'll summarize those, estimate those, and then I'll plug those into the expenditure side of the budget, and then I'll show the offset in the fund balance apply what we're carrying forward. And so when I determine that, I'll give you a list of what those estimated carryovers, but they're not, I put them in contingency and fund balance applied. And as far as that carryover resolution is when you actually approve the allocation to the specific budgets of those. So, but I like to get an estimate in there. Plus, I like to keep that in the budget because it helps maintain our expenditure restraint capacity. So the more we budget and get up to that threshold, the better. So you don't want to give up that capacity if you don't have to, because it's always based on the prior year. So debt service. This is just general obligation debt for all our outstanding debt that we have, the principal and interest payments, and the Clean Water Fund loan. And then page 10 is showing the various funding sources for those debt payments, whether it be water, light, the sewer utility, or the TIF districts. Page 11 and 12 is just showing the Centralia Center Fund. That's a special where we account for all the activities over to maintain the Centralia Center. So in the Senior Resource Center, that would be the Lowell Center, the county, and adult aging. The commercial lease space would be on the other side of the hallway there. And then we have a replacement reserves where annually we budget $25,000 to go into a reserve account. So then when we have repairs or projects over there, that we have monies already allocated for that. And then proposed in the Public Works Construction Fund budget is redoing the Centralia Center parking lot, of which will utilize those reserves to fund that. All right. On page 13 is the Emergency Medical Services Fund. That's our ambulance, strong ambulance operations. I mean, I think I touched on this when we were reviewing the fire department, but if you notice under charges for service, about 3/4 way down the page, right now we're estimating about $187,000 reduction in ambulance revenue. A lot of the transfers that we used to do, we're not doing anymore. And the big thing about that is that it wasn't only the base charge, but we were also able to charge for mileage, of which when you're doing transfers, you'd be able to get a lot of mileage revenue. And when I was doing my projection and stuff like that, I could see that mileage revenue really dropped, and kind of resulted in my projection of a reduction in $187,000. And here you'll notice where you see under taxes, general property tax, where it was 0 last year, this year is 441. That was what I referred to earlier in the general fund. Property taxes, that direct reduction, but you see the increase here, so it's that shift.
One quick question about
Sure.
the emergency medical.
Sure.
Remember when Chief Young was in here, we were talking about switching billing and that we hope to get more revenue brought in from
Yep.
using an outside services. Is that reflected in here, or where would that fall under?
Billing.
Yeah,
Yeah, it'd be ambulance revenue.
just,
Right now, I mean, I have it based on just what we are, and it's kind of hard to predict,
right, especially first year.
first year. That'll be one where as we start getting reports in from the billing service, I'll be able to kind of see that and then kind of project it. So any of that additional, if we do capture some additional revenue, you'll start to see that pop up in probably in the 2020, but until we get some verifiable data that, and it's hard because you could actually be getting more revenue, but your runs could then also be going down too.
Right,
So
yeah.
it's, that's why, when it comes to these things, I kind of like to use the same methodology from year to year, where I base it on trends and then kind of so you're consistent from year to year how you're estimating that. And sometimes you lag, but then that means the next year you're going to make it up.
Right.
So it's not a perfect science a lot of times. Room tax fund. This is the room tax where we collect that, and by statutory law that we give X amount up to 70% to the CVB, and then the other 30% is split between economic development and park outlay. I do believe for this year, I think it would be a good idea if we actually develop a contract with the CVB for the use of those funds, so that it's just it doesn't have to be a complex contract, but also lays out what they're going to be spending on, and also there's something we'll have to discuss about in the law. You can collect the greater of 30% or the amount that you collected in it, and there's this schedule, and I think this year it's either greater of 30% or what you collected in 2013. It's kind of odd, and I think that's something that we should discuss in a contract of how we want to do that, and if we're going to take advantage of the greater of, we should put it in the contract with them, or just keep it at the 30%. But I think that's something for probably November or December finance meeting of getting looking at that contract and formalizing that with them, because currently we just turn the money over.
And one of the positive changes, I think, in that state law change was it was a reporting requirement that the tourism entities share to the municipality who their vendors were. I think was kind of the way I would explain it.
They have to report any expenditure over a certain dollar amount. And I think I've sent that to the older persons in the past.
Recently that you've shared that. And I think I would encourage you to take another look at it, because it really, of the money that's spent for tourism purposes, how much of that is really being spent for tourism is a question that I've been asked by members of the community, and I think we should be asking that same question and potentially looking at that in the contract discussions that Tim said.
Is there somewhere where the economic development 36,000, where that 36,000 is going?
We've been retaining that for
that's okay.
Projects that come up throughout the year, the housing,
I didn't know if it was designated for something.
No, and I would advocate that we continue to retain it until we decide to.
Yeah, and I think anytime that there's an expenditure, it's always come before finance, get approval to use it for whatever, a study.
I just didn't know if we had it committed somewhere.
Reggie was another use of that money too.
Facade program.
So what?
Facade program.
It's
I just didn't know if that 36 was committed.
No, at this point. Page 15, this is our grants and donations fund. Doesn't have a really big budgetary annual budget process impact, because basically these are the ones where if we get a special grant or we get donations, we appropriate the revenue over to the expenditure account. It's just for comparative purposes that you see the 2018, those are all monies that we had received throughout the year that weren't in the original 2018 budget, and then were appropriate. That's where I kind of went back to the comparative up on the page 1. Sometimes it can get skewed because of those special appropriations and budget amendments. So not much on that. Wisconsin Community Media Fund, we'll be talking about that later, going over that budget. So that basically just shows the budget, and then the funding source basically being the franchise fee and some of the contributions we get from the other municipalities. Page 17 is the Mass Transit Fund. I think on the 6th we'll be undertaking that, approving that. I think the state approved whatever the evaluation process was, so we'll probably take formal action to award that contract at the next meeting.
We did it right.
So, I'll tell you, that program is a very administratively burdensome one to manage. Cindy does a great job with it because there are a lot of hoops, and it seems like every year the DOT is changing something, changing a form, changing a process. It's very time consuming, and she does a great job with it.
Yeah, I remember Mr. Matt never finally.
It's a bit tired.
I think it was.
It's probably they changed that new form he was letting down.
Definitely the push.
On page 18 is retiree health insurance fund, showing, this is where for a lot of employees, they're granted the retiree health insurance, and I think when you actually go to the departmental budget request, you'll see I kind of lay out specifically what those different benefit levels are for the various groups and things like that. And so basically we're showing about a $43,000 increase in our property taxes to pay for that. Currently we're undergoing an actuarial study right now. We're required by accounting rules to have an actuarial evaluation every 2 years for our OPEB, other post-employment benefits. And so right now we're undertaking that because we're due for that for our financial reporting this year. So I expect the report in February for that, and when I get that, we will share that with the council as far as what that liability is.
So there's no, how do I phrase this? There's nobody new that's going to ever be put on retiree.
I do believe it's 2012, and if you look on there, I think it's in there. But if I think it's 2012 for non-union, and I think for protectives for police and fire, I think it's 14. Don't quote me on that, but yeah. So all new hires are not eligible for it, but obviously you won't start to realize that savings until all those new hires start to,
Right.
So as our retirements are coming up, obviously we're still obligated to that, and will be for a number of years.
Also, it's only applies to new hires.
Right. So everyone else was grandfathered at that point in time of what the benefit was.
Okay.
And one thing you always have to remember is that the one thing about retiree health insurance is when someone retires and you hire the replacement cost for that position actually goes up, because not only now you're going to have to pay for the health insurance of the replacement, but you're also maintaining the health insurance of the retiree, sometimes anywhere from 50 to 100%. So that's why whenever you get retired, it actually costs more to replace a position. That's and that does add budgetary pressures. It's an expensive benefit. It's a good benefit. For
the additional cost of everyone thinks a new employee is cheaper, but
Right, but you're compounding it, right? Because
Right.
you're carrying that person
And
off.
I'll just use an example. I remember one time I looked, and it was, I won't name the position, but there was a position, and we hired the replacement, and we were paying 3 people's health insurance for that same position.
Because
Because
the
there were
person's
2
already
retirees that were still on, plus, so it's.
That's how long you live.
wow,
Or how young you retire.
how young or
Right.
Wow. Stormwater utility fund. This is the fund we created. I can't remember. It's been a while, but that's where when we had all those mandates from the state of Wisconsin for the stormwater requirements and things, and we did stormwater detention ponds, the dredging of the Quinnos Creek, 1 Mile Creek, help you with, there's a modeling that they do and you get credits for that, things like that. But we established the stormwater utility fee to pay for the operations of this fund and the related activities. That's where I said that it's proposed in here increase from $33 to $35.04 for stormwater utility fee, and you'll see that reflected in the charges for service. Sewer utility fund, we haven't discussed this budget, and that's something we have to talk about when we want to review that budget, if it's your wish to review that budget with Joe and Ryan. But basically laying out the charges for the activities, nothing real in the operations. Obviously, the one thing you should note is that For next year, we only have the interest-only payment on this year's Clean Water Fund loan. So it'll be 2020 budget where you'll see the full principal and interest coming on for that, and then it will be reflected in this budget.
Well, I guess we can talk about it then. I mean, I'm just looking at just a pretty large increase from year to year. Is that something that we expect to continue to grow, or
Well, a
just
lot
on
of
total expenditures?
Yeah,
I'm just
a
looking
lot of it you'll see in the transfer of the Public Works Construction Fund, depending on what projects they're doing. I know they're doing some sanitary sewer lining and things like that next year. Plus, you have the West Grand Avenue or East Grand Avenue project for the utilities there too.
Okay.
So that's reflected in that budget.
We haven't done wastewater, have we? We haven't done.
No,
That's what
that's
I was
right.
saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Discussed when that was.
You'll see their operations are basically a slight reduction in there, so it's really on the, you also see that the wastewater replacement account, when you do a Clean Water Fund loan, the state of Wisconsin mandates that you put X amount of dollars into for the equipment depreciation, and so that's laid out in the financial assistance agreement with them, and so that increase is reflecting that new equipment that they're, for the 2017 Clean Water Fund loan. And then just showing obviously the funding for those, and you'll see an increase in industrial service agreements. That has to do with the agreements that we have and the change in methodology there. Septic haulers, they've seen a very big increase in septic haulers coming to the plant. And like I said, when we go over that budget, Joe and Ryan will be able to address some of the things that are going on there more intimately. Page 23 is Aquatics and Riverfront Construction Fund. Basically, this is the fund that you use for account for the aquatics facility and the East River Bank project, showing a regional aquatics facility. I think we went through this when we went through project. It shows that that's based on the entire project. And then obviously offset by a stewardship grant, the donation amount, and then what's proposed for borrowing for those. Fund balance applied, if you remember, I said that's the amount that we had borrowed in 2016, for the aquatics, and basically those funds are still there, and we're carrying them forward and applying it to offset the construction of the facility. Public Works Construction Fund budget, we went through those, showing that those are the summary of those projects there, and then obviously the offsetting funding sources for that. Cost reimbursements on charge for this, that's what we receive from Water and Light. They reimburse us for any of the water main work we do. Also the transfer from sewer utility fund, sewer utility reimbursing for that, stormwater utility, and transfer from some trailing center fund that's coming out of the replacement reserves for that project, and then the proposed borrowing for those projects. Page 25 is, we have two TIF districts. On page 25 is TIF number 6, and on page 26 is number 7. Basically, not a lot of activity in there. We're just showing the tax increment that we expect to generate, and basically really the only expenditures we have right now is the transfer debt service fund to make pay for the debt that we borrowed to do some of the improvements in those TIF districts. Page 27 is equipment replacement fund. So this is where we account for our IT, engineering, office, police, fire, and street department equipment. We budget annually X amount of dollars to replace certain items, and those are based on estimates. And what we do is we budget a dollar amount, and then we continually carry those over so that, when we need to replace IT infrastructure or street department equipment, we have the funds available to fund those acquisitions. And then just showing how those are paid for with property taxes. You'll see like in charge of equipment charges. Throughout our budget, you'll see the line item equipment. Those are internal rates that we use, that we calculate based on a 3-year average to cover the cost of that equipment plus the depreciation. So that depreciation then comes back into this fund, and that's what we use to replace it when it's needed.
I think, there's a question raised about why aren't we setting money aside, or are we setting enough money aside? And I think you can, we don't have to revisit all the conversations related to the budget inflexibility, but just this was, very helpful when somebody asked, well, how much does the city set aside for replacement of equipment or the various requests or the questions that might get raised? It wasn't Tim was the guy to create that long ago. There was administrations that decided to sweep those accounts, and I think it just goes to show that from a budgetary standpoint, it's we have a good practice and a solid
responsible thing.
Right, very responsible thing to do.
So, building improvement fund, last page. Municipal building outlay, that's the $35,000 emergency generator for the library, and then city hall outlay built into the rental rates that you'll see in some of the city hall budgets. City hall rent, I build into those rates $10,000 is set aside for projects like the generator. So the funds accumulate, and then they're used to pay for like the emergency generator that we have being installed currently and things like that. So when we have a issue at City Hall, we have some funds available for that. So basically that's, in a nutshell, it's a brief overview.
So looking at, aside from the aquatic center, what are we looking at for bonding so far this year? Proposed with the streets and everything else?
Sure, if you
just kind of rough, trying to think.
Sure.
A total kind of number.
Right now in the budgets, we have a $5.3 million debt issue budget. That would include the street projects. That would include Riverbank Phase 2. That would include the aquatics, and then that would include the amount for about $241,000 for the new fire engine.
Yeah, because it's 2.5 for the aquatics.
Right. I can get you
second half.
Yeah, I can get you an itemized list of what breaks that out.
I was just kind of curious to see where we're at so far.
Right.
If we were going to adopt something today, aside from it's not balanced, but what we're going to look at for borrowing this year potentially.
Yeah. Right now this is a balanced budget as it stands. So.
And what do we don't normally come close to $5 million, do we?
Well, usually I would say for our normal street construction projects, I say normal, we're usually $1 million to $1.25 million. This year for streets it's about $1.5 million, but that's because East Grand Avenue is kind of an anomaly, a special project outside of what we normally do for our roads and things like that. So, and then depending on what it is, it's like usually we're in that $1 to $1.5 million, let's just say, on a normal annual basis for our road projects.
Special projects in there this time.
And then anything above that is usually based on for special projects, like when we have like the Centralia Center, the bike path, East Riverbank, things like that, and obviously aquatics. Then that's when you'll get those higher amounts for those special projects.
Perfect. Thank you. Let's have a hot seat first.
Who's first on the agenda? So
Okay.
It's only appropriate.
All right.
All right.
Ask away, and I'll answer whatever you need.
Do you have any kind of general highlights for us?
Sure. I can go right through it item by item if you like.
It's not on there if you look on your computer.
So what I'll do is I'll just go through.
What's that?
Okay.
I can.
You guys want me to go ahead?
Yeah.
On the highlights?
Print you off one if you want.
I can share.
No, it's fine.
It's kind of big enough you can see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I have that.
It's on
It should be in your departmental budgets. Remember that big document?
Oh, yeah.
page 120.
Should be saved somewhere.
Or, yeah, hang on. Yeah, I'll find it. Just go ahead.
All right, I'll go ahead and I'll just take it a bit slow. We have a government meeting fee. Those are used for covering meetings outside the city of Wisconsin Rapids. And generally what covers that cost is our charge to the other communities for covering that, and we pay a freelance rate of $75 for that. So that's where that comes in. So basically it's we're asking municipalities to cover that cost. and which is $1,000 at this point, which is shown in another area that Tim can explain. Your
That's revenue, right?
Pardon?
It's a revenue.
It is a revenue for
So it's not
that.
listed on this page, is it?
I don't know where you may have the other pieces involved.
What, the revenue side?
The revenue
Yeah,
side.
Do you remember when I went over, I said it's mostly cable franchise and then
Yeah,
contributions
yeah.
to municipalities.
This
so-
is just expenditures.
Yeah.
And those are
Yes,
for
and,
meeting coverage. NACUSA is a fee that's used as a general contribution entirely, not for covering their meetings at this point. So, I'm just gonna skip down into here. If you want me to go office supplies, your general office, just take note that every expense for us, computers, you name it, IT is all out of franchise fees. So none of that stuff is out of IT versus a lot of the departments here. It's funneled through the IT budget. So all of our computers and technologies through the franchise
Does,
fees.
Jake, do you understand where their revenue source is or how that works over at Community Access? I'm
No,
just trying to think that probably you understand.
Well, if you just wanna,
Maybe explain for Jake.
yeah, if someone would like.
sure, if you turn to page 16 on the budget document I handed you. So the top part of the expenditures, and that's what he's going over right now, is his departmental expenditures of $319 and his outlay of $25,000. And then down below, you'll see how that is funded. With the franchise fee of $303,000, charges for service, municipal contributions of $4,000, RCCA revenue of $1,000, which is
So on
probably.
on your cable bill, you're paying like $7. And everybody that has Solaris or Charter pays that $7.
That's where the franchise
Reflected
fees
in-
come
Yeah,
from.
and then they pay us quarterly, Solaris and Charter, we
that's-
save a quarterly check for them, and that's what that.
So it's a revenue
franchise
source
is.
that
Yep.
operates River City's access.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I'll just do some more high-level items. I'll skip some of the smaller ones here just so we keep moving. Equipment is one of the big ones for $10,000, and really that is more of a replacement fund and how we handle our replacements. This is replacing studio cameras that are needed. That I pretty much have a replacement sheet that I've gone over with both Tim and the mayor several years ago, and we're on that schedule of getting those replaced because they're falling apart. Same with computers as well. They're all documented when they were purchased. We're still working on some 2008 models that work for our volunteers. So those will be coming up in 2020. Computer software is a big one that we use because we have to purchase all our software for what we do, and including some of the other pieces of software that are used here for city communications purposes. So keep in mind, a lot of this budget is also used for communications, not just public access television, since our department is now a media source for the city as well. And then website, those are pretty small things. That's our website, not the city's website. Then there's I guess I went through the computer software. You can I didn't list it in there, but it's up to the $15,000. Equipment maintenance, we do have some things that break. Building maintenance is not for the Centralia itself, it's for inside the Centralia. So if I need something from the garage or something to be fixed, it could be fixed, locks, you name it, walls getting fixed, painted for the studio purposes, electrical needs, things like that. So I put that in there. Office supplies, we did talk about that. Postage, yes, it's mostly over here, but there are some big items that may need to be fixed if something goes down. So we have insurance and stuff for that. So we actually can, we budget just a very little amount on that. So your big things, computer software, equipment, your on-demand stream, that's something we use as well. That's a separate piece that we stream to our website. So whatever you're seeing here at this point is also streamed to the website. It's also streamed to Facebook, but there's no cost into that except for the initial equipment cost. Your training and education is important. That's for the staff to continue education. There's courses that they can do. We're also a member of Wisconsin Community Media, made up of about 52 stations like us throughout the state. So I guess I'll open it up to any questions. I just kind of hit the higher levels of our budget. Really the biggest piece, I should say, is probably employment. That we went over some transitions over the past, since I've been here, quite a bit from what it used to be. I'm sure Tim can kind of explain that in the history of Dean. So
Maybe Tim can answer this, what's the logic of that 1.5% for 15% of the Director of Innovation Technology coming out of this budget for?
That was just because he oversaw that budget, so it's just an allocation.
So
Kind of like what we do with the Director of Public Works, is that his time is allocated and budgeted to departments he oversees.
I guess for the rest of the council, to me, it doesn't make sense because for years, when the previous person was there and even when Tom was there, they never had a direct supervisor, and then we decided to make a direct supervisor. Now my concern is being that it's funded by franchise fees. What happens when they go away? We're going to have to absorb that because it's always threatened to be going away. The franchise fees.
Right.
Well, then where's that going to come from? We're going to have to fund that out of the general tax levy, right?
Right, but if you didn't do it now, you'd have to do it immediately then. Right. Right.
And to the franchise fee point, I mean, this is more of a national phenomenon, but if it's charged through cable companies, we're seeing people slash those levels.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I would just say down the road, we would want to prepare for that, to expect less money, because that obviously is the
That's why I don't think we should even get on the bandwagon now of even dipping into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta look at it as a communication tool for the city.
Right.
When I came about, I was just a public access coordinator. That was minus anything that was done over here.
Right.
Regardless of any news releases, social media, even filming these meetings were done by the public and paid, which was even different. When I came on board, that changed under Mary Jo Carson. So, yeah, those are things to really definitely think about. It is a very big concern amongst all public access television stations in the state of Wisconsin especially, because you gotta understand PEG fees and franchise fees are different things. The state of Wisconsin cannot collect a PEG fee. It was eliminated by the state back in 2005. And that's a difference. So that's how that works.
There are no PEG fees in here.
There's no PEG fees in the state of Wisconsin. Yeah, it'd be nice, especially when you're talking about other municipalities like Grand Rapids and Village of Port Edwards, that the residents may use the station. Yeah.
I guess my only concern is that, well, we're taking 15% now, but we're tying into a long-term cost out of a fee that could be fluctuating and eventually maybe going away. That's my only concern with it. So that to be yours.
Just don't fund it through the
police
department at all.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I don't even know why, for years it wasn't even part of the city really. And to me, it just makes sense if Tom just reported finding some property and they operated their budget under the franchise fees as they do, and that the budget's brought separately, almost like water and light. Back in the day, they used to do that with the Television Advisory Commission. They used to make that budget and go through that, correct, Tim?
Yeah, there was a telecommunications.
Back in the day, and they used to put together a budget,
Yep.
and it was almost semi-separate. However, that commission, because of state law, went away. And I'm just more concerned about protecting those franchise fees to make sure they're being used for all the program that, this year we got to watch football games on Friday nights on public access, where, the more that we take that money, which it can be used for operating expenses, but the more we start diving into and carving some of that out to fill holes in our budget, then when it goes away, then we're going to have to fill those holes some other way.
Yeah.
My concern is, are we starting to overspend it just by starting to spend it?
Well, it has expanded over the years. I mean, it's
What's that?
the budget.
Oh, absolutely.
I look at it differently, I guess, and I don't think that, the city can use that franchise fee for anything
Absolutely.
they want. And so I don't look at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media differently than any other department or the community development, which we're going to discuss next.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that the way we earmark that to fund that program and build that program, but I don't necessarily means that isolates them from all the other budgetary pressures that departments have to endure on an annual basis. So I look at it as more their department. This is a funding source. If that goes away, well, then it's going to either be we're gonna have to find different funding sources for the community, or they're gonna have to reduce expenditures, but I don't think they're any different than any other operating department. Because you could say that about any
But
funding
they can
source.
they're self-sufficient without tax levy. There's no other department in the city that is there?
Well, that's because you're just earmarking that for you, so then you could say that about any funding source. That's other
But I
than
think
tax levy.
historically, it's always,
Right.
we've kind of taken that path to
Right.
maintain that. Because I'd rather see public access spend more money on local programming, local events, for the older people that can't even get out, I don't know how many.
Oh, no, I agree with it. It's a service, but
Yeah.
it's a service that's no different than services that other departments perform.
Correct.
And that's why I view them as they're no different than any other department that provides a service to the public.
So are there fees, or those fees just put in the general fund, like
No,
fines
this
amount?
is a special revenue fund, so
So by law, we have to keep them separate?
no, we do not.
No.
It's just that we account for it as a special revenue fund because it's funded with a identified funding source, the cable franchise fee. So if the majority of your funding comes from a specific type of revenue, then you can classify as a special revenue fund. You'd ask, like, well, why would you do that? Special revenue funds are exempt from expenditure restraints. So we like to kind of carve those out and account for those separately, because then any expenditure increases there just do not affect our expenditure
So do we
restraint.
do that with fines and stuff like that through the courts?
No, but like EMS is one of those ones where we can carve out that, okay, we fund our EMS service basically through the ambulance fee. It's partially offset by the tax levy, but if the majority of your funding, a good chunk of your funding, comes from a specific revenue source, you can classify it for accounting purposes as a special revenue fund. And the state law for expenditure restraint looks at the general fund expenditures can only go up X percent. So like our public works, construction, all those
So
other
why don't we do
funds.
that with courts and the municipal court fine payments?
As far as a specific,
Special
we
revenue.
could. Right now, we have the ability, we have flexibility under expenditure restraint, but this is why it was carved out years
Okay.
ago. So.
I myself just, go ahead.
Mr. Chairperson. As far as, I guess I didn't see this either, this is something that's interesting with the salary, but one thing that you mentioned earlier, Mr. Blazer, is the essence of the IT director overseeing this community access operation. I didn't realize that either. And maybe this is a time where we could fix everything and bring it all back and take this out of the budget and take that 15 or 0.15 and put it back into the computer, or, IT or whatever. This is the time to do it.
Honestly, to me, it looks like we're taking 15% to justify taking 15,000 or 14, 13, whatever that 15% is, to help offset, make them the department head of that department, so we can take 13,000 out of there to help offset the cost of the position. Honestly, that's what it looks like to me.
From a budgetary standpoint, it's you're paying the same expenditures, whether it's in the general fund or
Absolutely.
I think what you're getting to is more of like, well, should the director of IT oversee? Who should oversee the community development program, or not community development?
Yeah.
Wisconsin Rapids Community Media.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
So that's what should
Well,
be determined. I mean, it's, the budgetary standpoint, it's like, well, if you fund it here, fund it there, your expenditures are the same.
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting at, because for years, it operated as an independent, I say department, he was a department head, or
Yeah.
Jim was,
Right.
and so now all of a sudden we need to put we can make that the department head over that department and take $15,000 or whatever that percentage is
See,
to offset.
Yeah, see, I have been department head since I started. So, I mean, not when Sue Show was my supervisor when I first started. After that, it went to me as a department head. It says it right on my title, and then from there, I've heard division heads, I've heard department heads. I have no idea, to tell you the truth. So.
I think this is a discussion for the HR.
Yeah, and that is a
Really,
discussion.
that's
I brought it
Well,
up for.
it's a budgetary
If that's
thing
what-
to
if
us.
that's the
But
way
if it's a
Absolutely,
concern.
but it's a budget thing we
Right.
could address right now
But-
and force the issue
Well, how are you
out of
going
the
to
way.
fund it then?
That's somebody else's concern.
But I guess just on my note.
Well, I guess it'd be our concern, we just won't fund it. That's if we want to go down that path, we could decide to do that too, you know, and then there wouldn't be a innovation technology funding source for a position.
I would rather see it go to the HR committee for discussion before we would move forward on not funding it, but.
Well, I
Yeah.
think at that point, when it goes to HR, it's to discuss, you know, the supervisory.
It's a job description.
It's a job description thing, not a financial thing. And I guess I bring it up because that's my concern we're taking. And obviously, we'd have to find a different funding source for this if franchise fees went away. Well, actually, the whole department, whatever the budget is here,
Yeah, the whole thing.
that whole thing we'd have to come up with what? 319,000 if we didn't have franchise fees. So I'm sure the pace of that department would quickly change. But that is my only question. Oh, I'm sorry, not my only question, but on that one.
Could you phase it in? I mean, that's a big chunk of money, in one shot. Can you phase it in over 2 or 3 years
For all that.
to put it into the general fund?
Well, I don't think we could even do a third of it into the general fund. My concern would be you know, obviously it makes sense to fund it now because that's how the funding source is with the franchise fees, but all of a sudden if they decided
Right, it makes sense.
3 years, no longer can there be franchise fees.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Yeah, then it's a completely different discussion.
Right,
as far as,
exactly, but-
You know, yeah, you know.
And that's my concern is that we're starting to earmark franchise, and I guess that could be but I would think this is probably one of the more volatile funds because by state law or federal law, it could just easily be eliminated
Right, well, yeah.
versus other funding sources that we have. So that's just my concern is if we're starting to earmark these funds for city operation, it could put us in a pickle down the road.
Well,
Or somebody else is gonna have to clean
Well,
up.
the reason why is that because the director of IT oversees the department, and basically we're allocating the costs to show the true cost of that. Now, like I said, I mean it's a discussion more for human resources as far as whether that position is
Right.
oversee. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna. I don't know. I'm not intimate with any of the operations, so. You know, I can't comment on that. But just from a budgetary accounting standpoint, is we like to
Yep, that makes sense.
budget costs of what that operation and supervision administration is a cost of that. And that's why that 15% of the director, I think that was done 2 years ago, whatever, was allocated because they were overseeing that department, just like with the director of public works. You'll see some in the wastewater,
Oh, yeah.
street, engineering, and park, because that he supervises all those and spends time in all those, just like we do with the DPW, where we allocate it to all their activities. So that's
And it makes sense. I'm just saying
Right.
that we're earmarking a city department head budget for some of those funds that may not be there, but obviously that's a position thing that we have to look at. I guess personally, my only other question is, you know, we went from, and I'm kind of curious to know, we went from, in 15, $2,500 in computer software to 19 to 15,000. So that's a huge jump. I'm just curious to what increase in software that's happened in 4 years to make such an increase.
It was even from last year, it went up like $6,000, it looked like, or something like that.
It just seems like a big jump. That was my only other thing.
Yeah, and I can explain that. We're covering, community media is covering the cost of a lot of the programs that are not ours for computer software. For example, Site Improve is a program that's used to monitor our city website, Grow Rapids, the Lowell Center, to make sure that we're monitoring our accessibility standards. So that adds up to about, see here,
Isn't that an IT
about
thing?
$4,600. You got Archive Social, which is another one. These were not in here in the past. That's $4,800. Some of these were done by the previous, or wanted by the previous IT director. Archive Social is a record keeping for all our social media accounts, which is police department, fire department. The more you use them, the more it costs. So right now, we're actually going at that.
So wouldn't that be allocated over when normal software? If multiple departments, wouldn't you spread that out like telephone? Everybody gets.
Well,
Or are we
the
just
social
is this a
media? The
funding-
social media. I mean, Tom made the comments like we're a communications department. Social media is part of that. Website's part of that communications. I mean, I think the community access. I don't. Like I said, I wasn't.
No, I know. I know.
I'm just saying, it's like the public
I wanna
access
back
isn't what it used to be, where it was just the public access channel. He made the comment that we're the communication arm of the city, and those, whether it be Facebook, social media, anything like that, website is form of communication, and then that's why those costs are paid for out of here. So whether that's right or wrong, I'm just saying that's the rationale for why you
To me,
have
it's just a
Archive
revenue
Social,
stream.
because,
It's just another revenue stream to spend money on, I guess.
Archive Social.
I don't know if it's needed. I don't
know either. I'm just.
What does Archive Social do that I couldn't find, or you couldn't find? I've operated Facebook
Sure.
pages before that.
Sure.
If I needed to pull something up from 2 years ago, you can use a search tool to find it.
You
So
could.
what does that do then?
It's really a great tool for clerks and have used by past municipalities if you get an open records request. It also documents anything within milliseconds of the post. So if something's deleted off of there, you have a record. There's easily enough so anybody can delete a comment on social media, even an administrator here of a social media account, like anybody through PD or myself or anybody could delete that. And then it was there. Now where do you search it for any kind of lawsuit coming down?
So it's almost like an insurance in case we get an
Big-time
open
insurance.
record request.
And, this archive, these are relatively new companies because of the concern that's happened quite a bit in other municipalities that I've heard about. So these companies have come about, and they also archive our YouTube channel as well, so it counts a little bit more. So all those meetings are archived as well. So it's also an archive for.
Right.
So if something's deleted off, you can't.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can't search it,
yeah.
right?
That's really what it's for.
So is it a subscription as a service, or is this a one-time?
No, it's a service every year.
So it's $4,800 a year.
Yeah, and it's probably going to go up because they told me that right now, PD uses it a lot.
Right.
And the more you use it, we get into another tier, and we're close to that tier, and it goes up almost another $3,000. So what the most people, the PD is what's using it the most right now, and then some of our videos count as like 4 social media posts. So it's getting up there in right at that level. We're at one of the lowest levels right now of a tier. There's a couple, like 3 tiers, and we started this last year in 2017. So would be this. I believe the second year of it.
Yeah, and from what I know, working in software as a subscription, that's how you get people. Is the more you store in there, you can't leave. So
Yeah.
that one, I mean, I think before we get any further in, we might want to. I mean, you
Sure,
guys
there are
put your
other-
budget through forward, but
Yeah, if there's
I
a
wanna
way to
look at that,
capture
'cause-
that stuff, through an IT here, that'd be great. But
Yeah, I don't know
you
about
have
that,
so many accounts, and it's just it's an insurance policy
Right.
for open records for our clerk or whoever has to do that. It could be. I've heard that there was like other places that had 15,000 posts, and how do you find all that information?
Right.
It'd take you forever.
Well, like you
Very
said, if
easy
someone
to do.
deletes something, I just know that once
Yeah.
we get hooked in, we're gonna build more data.
Oh yeah.
That's gonna keep going up. So.
Yep.
Mr. Chairperson.
Yeah.
Tom, I think that you're exactly right. We need an archiving program service, but how much of that fee is this department, is your department actually assuming? Is it spread out over other departments, or is it
At this point, we absorb the entire fee.
all of it?
Yeah, the whole thing. So we're not pushing that out beyond anywhere else. Since we're like we're a department of IT in a way, I think that's how it was put in, a division of IT. Although a separate budget of IT, that's how that kind of works. So yes, we fund it, but we use just very little. Our YouTube account and our Facebook account and our website, which are pretty small compared to other ones that are like Parks and Rec, but PD and Fire, they're one of the biggest ones. There's a few that are not on there that maybe should be.
Is there a way to gauge how much each department is using? Is there user
Oh, yeah.
accounts where you can
there's-
see?
Yep, you have all the
Okay.
accounts listed as an account holder, myself, and the director of IT would have had it. they would be on it as well at the time.
And you could easily break it down by percentage on a monthly thing.
Oh, yeah, yeah, and like I say, I can see all the posts and what the PD uses on a monthly basis, and they have a graph, and I can print all that out and give that to anybody that they need, but they all call me if we're starting to go over the threshold, which we are. In the last 3 months we have, and it's been the PD. By them, just the number of posts, any kind of posts, and commenting, and more comments, because it's the comments that are, and you can't control the comments. The more they have, the more it's gonna.
Right. They're very active on Facebook.
It's just very active.
And it's a good thing.
Yeah, there's nothing
is.
wrong with it. I just want to make, if $4,800, if we plan on going up 2 tiers in this.
I see it going up.
But I mean, is that going to be enough if we're only budgeting?
For now, they told me for next year, yes, but they could slap it in mid-year and say it's gonna go up. Right now, they gave me the price list for 2019, depending on where you're at now, even if you're at the level. But I see us increasing it just because of where we're going with social media.
Right.
And now we're taping these meetings as well. They're live on Facebook too. That's another count towards it. So, I mean, you could say that's out of this budget, WRCM, that's fine, but because that's what we do.
Right.
Just, that's another area, so.
Yeah, maybe these costs should be distributed kind of like the IT director was distributed in the budget, that way that it gets placed in with other funds.
I think you guys will see it change over the years, and that's why it's going up. I would think it could be 22,000 next year.
It could be.
It really could, and it probably
Right,
would.
that's why we're talking about possibly.
So just keep it in.
Yeah.
So I guess just as a general question, when did the shift happen from public access to community media? Or does the council remember? You guys remember doing that? Or
Been a while.
has it been?
Maybe the name changed officially through the HR committee and then the council.
Okay.
I'm not sure
I
if you
think
were
it
on
was,
the,
3 years ago.
about 3 years ago.
How much time do you spend on city stuff versus public access things, Are we losing the public access more to doing city?
Well, there's always time, you have to do the city stuff, yes, that's something that wasn't done in the past. It could easily be 60-40 or 70-30. It could even be the other way. There's a lot of work to be done on the communication side, but you have to know where you're gonna go with some of that. The coordinators, myself, I do a lot of the public access as well as and service both. So most communities have a communications director. They different. It's not different, but I do both. I'm just telling you, I do both. And that was noted by the HR committee when we had to reevaluate my position in 2014 and 2013. So nothing wrong with that. We just took note that's how we're going to try to intermingle this stuff because of all the communication is.
You probably hear more from your viewers. How do they feel about the shift? Is it programming, or are they missing programming, or they enjoying more city stuff, or?
We're really handling both. We've ramped up our volunteerism a lot.
Like I said, at least this year you had football games.
Yeah.
Last year you didn't.
We changed our model, like I said before, with employees. Hiring in a multimedia specialist, multimedia assistant to help beef up the programming 2013, 2014. That's kind of shifted now because now those people and myself are used for stuff in the city as well. Could be writing news releases for different departments, providing video coverage, drone coverage, reading copy for maybe the mayor's office, community update for the mayor. All those are performed by myself and my department people. So, it's going to take some time.
Before?
Pardon?
Didn't the executive coordinator do that before?
I don't know. Yeah, so, we use it as a communication tool, and that's how we were doing that. But yeah, be honest, things have changed in that area. I come from the news end when I came in, and just brought an extra service to the service. It's a lot of work. I'm a salaried individual. It's not a 40-hour position. I accept that. That's what you get into when you're in the media. But Yeah, we don't want to take programming away from people, and it's definitely public access and open to it, and allow that. Right now we still put a lot of effort in these monies, especially in the equipment side, have helped fund the public access portion, which I kind of separated in my head a little bit, but for like cameras, all that video equipment is really bought from an individual to help us out with people that are wanting to volunteer or community producers. And they buys at a very good rate for us. And if you would go back in the bills, that's where you would see $100 here, $200 there for cameras. It's really helped us get those events that are outside the city, per se, to be covered for public access. So our staff is doing that, is helping mold that, myself primarily, to build that relationship amongst the volunteers as community producers that do the programming. We have lots of nonprofits that ask our help on our behalf. We myself don't go out and do that. I look for volunteers within the community to do that, and we have equipment funded by here to do that and put on the channel. It was done a lot by staff, but staff is limited now by doing work over here for these departments, and so we're not trying to cut programming. We're just trying to use us in the city government end, since we're public education government, and provide that. Yes, it's you don't want to lose that programming. And
well, I'm kind of curious what the viewers are interested in. If it's really, are they interested in the stronger city media side versus programming?
Yeah, and we're definitely open to all the viewers' calls. I do talk to quite a few of them. A lot of them are the community producers that are people that want to do something, not something that I would direct as a volunteer. Something like Polka is considered a community producer. It's a right of public access, like church, and they can go out and film that without just by this basic rules that were set forth of the station. So quite a bit of programming. It is 7 days a week, 24/7. Night I've kind of trimmed down from midnight to 6, but we're running. We put all new equipment. Since I started, Tim can say it's a total transformation from what it was to what it is today. And I guess my title was also changed to multimedia coordinator of the city rather than public access coordinator as well. So those were all done in that name tape change here. So the name change did go through council, and I remember how that went through. And we went through a lot of discussions, what it was going to look like as well. So I currently report to the mayor. I used to do that in the past before our IT director, so I used to both.
I like to hear that you're using volunteers. I know with this specific area, it's hard for a lot of folks who are going to college for this or are interested in this to find a way to use their skills and engage in their interests. So it's nice to hear that we're using volunteers.
Yeah, I'm working with high school. I just went to that career day. I'm going to visit with their Carly on Friday and talk about how to get some more of the students involved, and a pretty good relationship to get those, because they should be doing some of the sports. I think that's what it's about. Really, we want to get the community involved. It's community engagement, and if we can do that, that's going to be a win-win for all of us. Myself will go out there and help teach during those times. Maybe have to go out there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Do high school sporting events and things like that. That'd be great.
Kids involved, because this has so much with public speaking to video, to communications, to marketing. There's so many. We want photography, we want graphic help. There's a lot into it, but we're also here as staff to help with the departments at a help desk ticket request. So that's where we go, like in IT, they would request our services for something that might need to be done, just like you requested on getting some images for our beautification councils. So, and each of us on our team are part of a council, the mayor, to help out, be as like an advisory person there. So each of us have a council, and my staff to work with the mayor on as well. So, but it is a communication tool, like Tim said, and we're using TV, social media, websites, our website, city's website, all those to use. The name may be a little bit confusing to the public, to be honest, because most people think of it as public access and maybe not communications per se from the city.
I think over time that'll change. It was only 3 years ago, but yeah, the more they see you guys on social
And they do,
media,
yeah, and that's a big deal. And, you know, the change, keep evolving. That's just how it goes.
I just keep going back to what does the viewer want? You know, and it doesn't seem like that's been ever answered.
It seems like they can call in and request or even put their own stuff on. So.
But, you know, do they want the city stuff? Are they interested in some of those things, or do they really want to watch church every Sunday? And
I think they do, and what
I
I've
do
heard,
too.
entertainment is a big deal, and that's why it's part of our mission statement. Promotion entertainment is a big part. Entertainment is really used by the elderly. Public
I'd say the
programs.
homebound people.
You bet, and that's not done by staff. It's done by community producers, which are volunteers. The only thing we're funding is the equipment to do that, and the time to play it, and the equipment to play it back, and to put it on. So, you know, going to those events, no, we are not doing that, but that is done by them. And that's always been done in that nature, that kind of programming, especially in that entertainment field. So.
All right.
That's all I have.
Well, thank you.
All right,
Yeah,
thank you.
thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
So that's big one.
All right. Is there one of the three you want to cover first? Because I guess I have community development, inspection services, or ordinance control.
How about C is first on my list here?
All right.
Community
development. All right, community development, that mainly covers.
I already emailed you
That covers basically my position and then the .8 position of the community development specialist. Main duties for that is administrative support, community outreach, and then planning, zoning, and economic development. So those are the aspects that are covered under community development. Overall, wages are a slight decrease. That is because originally the community development specialist was a full-time employee, and that's been still full-time, but only at .8. So basically 32 hours per week.
Is that because of a need or a request?
That is a request.
Okay.
Of the employee. Operating expenditures, not a lot of changes. Slight increase in office supplies. That's mainly tied to some office equipment, basically standing desks, those type of ergonomic improvements.
I don't know if anybody's seen, but I was up by the assessor's office one day, and those stand-up desks are really nice.
We're looking at a
Oh.
less elaborate method,
Oh.
the old school, just very
But
desk.
still,
You
yeah,
can
still though, that's
easily change
nice.
spell, but yeah.
Nice.
It works
It's
good
gotta
if
be
you've got
comfortable
the
too.
furniture that plays. But we're moving to do that. The reduction in that section is moving, we had budgeted for the sign code update in this year's budget because of the time overruns on the zoning code and the comprehensive plan update. That has not officially kicked off yet, so I don't know that we're gonna get it completed in 2018, so there may likely be some funds carried over into 2019 to complete that sign code update. And that's pretty much it. Any of the other line items I tried to explain in the budget requests, things like the training and education, kind of the standard conferences that myself or Madeline have gone to. Those are generally the planning conferences at the state level. I'm not sure if I'll actually go to the national conference again this year. So there
I was gonna ask, do you have a requirement, or is there a funding, something that's attaching to having to go to a national conference?
No, it's just more professional
Okay.
maintenance. If I pursue a certain designation, then there is an ongoing maintenance requirement, but I am not AICP, which is the planning certification.
And I saw it in here, which made me think, but it's not because of you at all, but I just think we should have a practice here that not allow national conferences unless it's a requirement for a certification. I've been to many conferences before in my life, and yeah, you go to some seminars during the day, and then you go and have dinner and drinks at night, and for me, it's more social than anything, and it's like, I don't know, I just think, any in-state conference, unless Obviously, unless there's a designation or if you're doing it because you need it for a certification. I just think we should make it a practice not to allow national conferences, training, or out-of-state conferences. And obviously in-state conferences wouldn't be any big deal because you don't have such an expense to it, but an out-of-state conference, I think, would different than training, because the training's, it's in there for a reason. You're going for training. Where I don't look at conferences as training, unless some of you guys do.
Depends on the conference, I guess. I've been to some good ones, and I've been to some that are more slow.
But I just think, it's expensive to budget. I don't know how many national conferences that are attended each year. Just my thoughts. I'm in favor of in-state conferences. Most people wouldn't mind going to a national conference someplace, especially this one. Must be nice and warm. But
I don't know how San Francisco is in April or not. They always do it too early in the year.
I don't know what anyone else's thoughts are on conferences versus. Obviously, if you go to training out of state, is sometimes it's necessary. But I look at a training and a conference as two different events.
I agree with you, especially on the municipal side compared to the private sector. But maybe change it from that it's not necessarily prohibited, but it would be on their dime. If someone wanted to go, I mean, they want to take vacation time, can they prohibit them?
Then that's really not, it would be our concern, but, I guess that's just, I don't know.
I agree, except that the city has a unique initiative, that a conference might be necessary for somebody to go get, go to the workshops and so forth. But as a whole, but maybe reduce the amount and make it a line item for those unique initiatives that you might have in the city.
If it's something
like
that
solar panels or that somebody's not familiar with. And you can always bring somebody in, I know.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, and I think if you're going for a certain letters past your last name, that would make sense, because I think that benefits the city is having people with certain designations as a benefit. But I think just as a practice, I think we should maybe not allow national conferences unless it's for a designation, or if it's something the city as a council feels necessary that we need to maybe look at doing in the community. Thoughts?
I totally get your point. I could see more of a, rather than completely ban them, more of like a biannually or something, so that they are going out there, they are getting that thought leadership and retaining some of that great stuff from the conference, but maybe just not every single year.
Do you think you get that at state conference though?
Yeah, to a certain level, but you always get a different perspective out of state too. I know I've been to some of these, so I know what you're saying with some of them can just turn social events, but I've also been to some really good ones, so I do see
especially for the cost to the taxpayer.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I see both sides there.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I will note that national conference, that's 4 to 5 days usually long.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, so it's much larger. There's the variety of conversations is far and away of like a state planning conference. Usually there's one track and that's it. And it's obviously going to be very localized. Not saying I can understand the concerns on the cost and things like that. And obviously I'm not certified, but this conference would qualify for that certification. Mm-hmm. So it's not just a glad handing, social event.
Absolutely.
It is.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you.
You need to have that certification.
For having, or to maintain that certification, having it attend, I could totally understand. But yeah, if we don't have that, or there's not a specific need in the community, I would think that at that point, we need to look at it. But versus otherwise, I just think we should make it a practice not doing national conferences unless there's a need.
Well, like Scott said, what if there's just a line item for training or whatever, and if they want to go to San Francisco, then justify it.
Yeah. But are we going to sit here and say no, we can't go? Yeah, that's the other thing is, we're not going to deny Adam trying to expand his
Yeah.
education and knowledge, but I think
That's not possible. Everything.
Well, or Tim wanted to go into
I have
January.
some
mega room for growth.
some abacus trainings in Iceland or
I
something.
think, just a comment. I mean, I think it really depends on really what is at that conference that would benefit the city, and really, if it's kind of, it all depends, it's like I have national ones, but I usually don't go to them because usually we have quarterly or 3 local chapters here in the state, and a lot of that, all the new kind of accounting, but accounting isn't, accounting is accounting, so I guess it's not that.
But I guess I should maybe put it more
Not as sexy as community development, economic
Is that what you're
development.
gonna say?
Well, and maybe it's unfair is that,
I'm special.
the cost of this conference, if that's the only national conference somebody's going to in this whole city, maybe that's not a big deal, but if 10 people go, that adds up,
Right.
but then who picks and chooses who goes? So, I can see if there's a specific need, which then I think at that time come to finance and request it, and then we can discuss whether or not.
Yeah, it really depends on
But
really
it's tough, because
what
we're
the
not gonna
substance of the,
it's gonna be hard to sit here looking at Tim saying, no, you can't go.
Oh, you did not.
No, it would be tough, but.
And I've always approached it as there had been a historic training budget. And
Absolutely.
that's what I keep
Yeah.
it in, and then I
Yeah.
figure out what fits in those pieces.
Yeah.
So
Right.
again, I'm not,
No,
this has been consistent at least for a few years. now,
totally
but-
get that. I just saw national conference and the price tag, and I was thinking about how widespread could that be across
Right.
the city, and then those tax dollars added up to
Yeah, because
that spending.
theoretically, the current HR policy says that for any out-of-state type conference or training, that has to be earmarked in the budget.
Right.
Because if you remember before, if you were out of state, they had to
Go
make
to
a referral to the Human Resources Committee, I do believe.
It went to finance for.
I think it was the HR.
Oh, it was HR for
out-of-state travel.
Yeah.
And then they changed it to where, if you identified in the specific budget request, then there no more approvals were needed. So it really depends on.
But then if we could line up a whole line of
Yep.
national conferences, and it's a line item in the but if we go and
Right.
actually look at what the conference is for, it might be an interesting topic, but how much is it really gonna help Central Wisconsin, City of Wisconsin Rapids? So
You know what my idea always was
what's that?
that if you attend like a national
Actually,
conference there, that you
I
come
think-
back and have it like a one-page executive summary. Okay, what did we learn? How can we apply it here?
Given
at
a
the
council
city?
meeting.
Or just or distributed. No, I'm just saying it's like okay, what did we?
Gonna put me up
Yeah.
on the podium.
PowerPoint presentation.
But you know what I'm saying is it's like if
Absolutely,
you're
yeah,
going
I
to invest the money, it's like okay,
And how we're gonna
what
apply it
ideas
using
can
the
we,
city, yeah.
Hey, I learned this, and this is something that we could really apply or might work here, and is the council interested in that?
Right.
And that's good for the taxpayers.
And also
too,
you kind of educate
justify it.
other members of like, oh, okay, I mean, I'm not going to come back and say, here's a new accounting standard we have to do.
That we could hear.
I'll give you a 5-page.
But it's not
it's
just on
yeah.
this conference, but I don't know how many.
Right.
I just noticed on here because I saw the price and I was like,
Yeah,
and training I don't argue with, but and even if it's out of state training, if somebody's going to training now, if you call the annual training, maybe that may be a different story. But I don't know. I think just identifying a conference in a budget because it's in the budget now it's legal to go to just doesn't make sense to me.
And on top of it, to piggyback Mr. Blazers, that there's been, and you know this, that there's been clerks and treasurers trainings that have been billed as training, that you go to them and they're not even training, they're not even worth the time
It's
spent.
not where it's going, exactly. And you don't know until you get there.
And that's even in-state, let alone national.
networking.
Network, yeah,
It's
network.
that it benefits
Famous
somebody,
network.
but isn't benefiting the taxpayers here.
But I don't know how you guys feel about
I'd be okay with taking a look at that. I mean, overall, across the entire staff. Because like you said, I don't know how many national conferences we're going to.
Yeah,
So
you take
it's
that.
hard to
You don't
say.
wanna
If this is
designate
just one, but.
but if everyone puts one in there.
Right.
There's Tom. No, he's gone.
Another adjustment.
Exactly. And that's my thing is just, I don't know, conferences and training are two different things in my book. And I'm good with out-of-state training if it's or a conference that's you need for a designation or a title, but I hate to say a feel-good conference, 'cause I'm not sure, but I don't know what conferences are in the budget. I don't know, because I think we should pull out the other ones, if there is any.
Okay. I'd have to
Or-
look,
Something for a future meeting.
let's see. Okay.
Something to think about.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt you. Got you off track.
Oh, that's all I have on community development. So, any other questions on that? Otherwise, I'll move to inspection services.
Go ahead.
Adam, part of your job is economic development, and I know I called you to kind of give you a heads up on it, so it's not anything I'm going to ask you that I didn't already warn you about. How many hours a week do you say you spend on economic development?
Yeah, I have to remember what I told you, so I am.
Let's say a month. Let's just say a month. How many hours would you say you give 40 hours a month to economic development?
So we're talking, in a typical week, I would say 5 to 10 hours is economic development. So over a month, that would be 20 to 40 depending.
But does your economic development consider an expansion on Quick Trip?
It is,
I was gonna ask
yeah,
you.
I guess what I would say is the majority is reactionary economic development is how I would phrase it. So, for example, the firm that we've been working on for quite some time, I mean, that's something that came to us, and then there's a lot of time and effort that's put into putting together proposals, recruiting at that point. But there hasn't been, or at least since I've been here, there isn't a person going out and reaching out and recruiting to try and bring in businesses. So it's someone approaches, how do you get them here? Versus going out and saying, hey, we've got Wisconsin Rapids here, do you want to come? So does that answer the question?
Then it does it. And really what I'm getting at, and this is something that I want to bring up to the other council members with a little bit of a discussion, and it doesn't have to be necessarily this budget year because I don't necessarily know how we would fit it in, but I mean, ultimately, I look at economic development slightly different than probably other people do, which is I'm probably more active to go out and try to advocate for the city of Wisconsin Rapids, which are essentially located. We have great assets. So just to give you an example, I had contacted a golf manufacturing facility. And on the internet, I just randomly threw an email out and said, are you ever interested in relocating to Wisconsin Rapids? And within a couple days, I got a response, which was, do you have a site picked out already? My name is blah, blah, blah. Here is my phone number. Contact me. Holy shit. Like, is this the key to economic development? Do we just cold call people and look at certain corridors to say, maybe we could drum up some businesses, bring in some employment, maybe we work with old businesses? So I guess my point is that I don't think as a city we're aggressive enough for economic development, but I don't want to undermine what you've done, Adam. But basically saying is there a unique way that we can come up with maybe a different position? When I questioned you before, it was, we have Reggie. Does the city of Wisconsin Rapids lead the way for economic development, saying we're willing to put a full-time employee at Reggie that works with local businesses and calls local businesses and gives us updates on leads? Because when I turned this golf manufacturing place over to Reggie, one, I cannot get a hold of them for 2 months, and two, I haven't heard a thing about this possible golf manufacturer. So it kind of tells me that there's some gaps. Now, it would be gaps maybe in my pursuit because I thought Reggie would be the appropriate channel to go through, and maybe I should have went to Adam with it. But the question is, would you have enough time to really do that proactive economic development piece?
Well, and again, if that lead comes to me, by all means, you move things around, and then we would reach out and then figure out what their specifications are. So what acreage are they looking for, and what workforce, and basically put together a package and say, here's our proposal.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, that can certainly be done.
So
again, but taking it's awesome that you were lucky on that one, but a lot of times you'll put out 10, 20 feelers, and if you get one, it may be a good thing. And again, that's not where the experience is.
Exactly, and that's not necessarily your
position.
position either. You're dealing with ordinances, you're dealing with zoning, you're dealing with local businesses on everything else. I'm just saying, is there an opportunity, or should our council look to separate the economic development side of it to really be more proactive instead of reactive? I mean, let's be honest, that other company that we were talking about, they came to us. We didn't go to them. And it's not for sure, but how do we help? How do we drive business? How do we get more people here? How do people know about us? Essentially, there's a lot of selling points. And I wouldn't really care if a person had to make 150 phone calls to land one, because that's still better than what we're doing right now.
Well, yeah, and I'm sitting here thinking the same thing, because obviously Adam's got a lot of things on his plate. Are we expecting?
That's my point.
Right, exactly. That's why I'm taking it. Is it fair, or because that's something I think this council would like to see. However, I don't think it's realistic in our current setup. Then I think I brought that up with Reggie when we discussed that with finance, that we're throwing chunks of money at different organizations to do economic development. Wouldn't it be better just to compile that into one person to do it full time, or near full time?
I think that message is becoming more clear as the years went on. That meeting was a few months ago, and I mean, Mr. Graff just has an example of what we were talking about. We didn't want to happen when we met, so I think that's definitely something to explore.
But here's the opportunity there, is to say that we would offer up, as the city of Wisconsin Rapids, we would offer up a position. And let's say Port Edwards decides to offer a position, or Nakusa decides to offer. Now you have a group that can really work toward economic development in the local region.
Or even
that is still reports to the city, has the city resources available to that group. I'm just bringing the idea up. I don't know if it's appropriate. I just wanted to push it out there, because you will be getting that lead that I have. But I'm just thinking, look at what between the council, Adam, Tim, the whole group effort to get that zoning rewrite done. How much more time did you have to do anything else but zoning rewrite in the last 18 months? On top of everything else. I'm just saying, and I'm open to suggestions. I'm just throwing it out there. Is there an opportunity here? And like I said, maybe not this budget cycle. I just looking for creative ways to try to create economic growth in the community. But obviously what we're doing isn't working. Just my thought.
And I guess just from my perspective, the key part of it is getting the right person with the right skills and being able to afford them, quite honestly. It's going to depend on what you're looking for. If you're looking at bringing in someone who's just energetic and willing to make those calls, and is that personality, but you're willing to basically have someone kind of supervise, hold their hands to keep them on track, and that would likely be my position, I guess, then you can bring in someone maybe at a somewhat reasonable level. But if you're looking at someone who's really standing alone, operating, and knows all the tricks of the trade and things like that, you're looking at a substantial investment. And that was a lot of the discussions with Reggie when it was created. Was one of the goals of that, whether it's been successful or not is, I guess, not the discussion here,
right.
But bringing in someone who hopefully would act as that regional person to be able to go out and be that face. And I think it was headed that way, and then it got derailed a little bit, and then with the current director, maybe it's not living up to those. But I think turning around and trying to get something at this budget time, I think that would be appropriate, but having those discussions and really beginning to feel that out and make sure that's the way the council wants to go, I think that.
When's the next time we meet with Reggie?
Well, next year probably at budget.
They want money.
Yeah.
Next time you invite them.
It's like annually. I mean, one shot and this dog and pony show, and they leave. But we don't talk about the critical comments that are made tonight, and drill down deeper than this dog and pony show. And maybe they have to tell us the detail, just like a budget here. I mean, you've been you scrutinize a lot of the issues we need to do with them. And maybe we should request a meeting rather than the annual time.
Or we just start to make a move towards something that Adam described, I like the first role, that would be someone who's more proactive, focusing on bringing business, but reports to someone like you who would know more of the tricks of the trade and be able to guide that person.
Where, yeah, and then you could not be freed up, but, because you're constantly getting diverted. You're taking a high priority crisis or, the thing that's at the top of the list and not be able to dedicate those hours regularly.
Well, Reggie has an office in Hardin, Wisconsin, right?
Courage and Courage. Oh, it's Hardin, Wisconsin.
So I'm a little
Oh,
confused as to why they were so hard to get a hold of.
Because plenty of messages, but I'm not here to scrutinize that.
This is recently, kind of?
Yeah, like within the last 2.5 months.
Well,
like I said, I've
funding
contacted
them,
Adam
though,
about
so
it.
I
thought
think
maybe that route would be headed in a direction, but the point is like, kind of echo a little bit what Mr. Kellogg said, is do we just keep throwing, do you just keep throwing money out at it and saying, yeah, we're doing economic development, but we're not doing economic development, so how do we really, maybe this was an option, 4 years ago, was it? 5 years ago that they developed Reggie? Or was it 3 years ago? 3, because I think there was a talking point on my page.
Fourth, 3 or 4. I remember that.
So, I mean, but maybe there again is, once again, I'm just questioning it because I'm struggling with the whole idea of economic development and what we're doing as a municipality to actually drive that.
There's no, it's not like a zoning administrator, there's not a standard way of doing it. There's standard way to have a plan, there's a standard way to have a zoning administrator. And if you look at 20 different municipalities, every one is going to do economic development. So it's not just Wisconsin Rapids that struggles with this, and there is no easy solution. And I can't guarantee adding a person's going to be the solution, but it's an alternative.
But I mean, we've tried for 3 years with Reggie, and I'm just bringing it up that, if we want economic development in the city to try to get away from the one-horse town, as everybody keeps telling me, which I would strongly disagree with, but then we need to be proactive. Like, we can't just sit back and wait. I mean, we gotta do something proactively to change the status quo, knock down silos, I don't care.
So what do we do is that a referral to like a committee to explore for 2020? Or what steps do we need to take to move towards exploring something like
maybe
that?
it's a committee of the whole meeting down the road here.
Yeah, I wouldn't think it needs immediate attention.
Right,
I'm just saying that let's get through the budget or whatever, but I'm just saying, and unless anybody else has, any other ideas, but I'm just throwing that idea out there then.
Yeah, and that's always been my concern. It seems like we're giving multiple organizations a shot of some money, but
What do we get?
right, it would be better just to compile that in.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get through the budget, I'm just saying.
I just sit here thinking when you said, Reggie's at Hardin, Wisconsin, but we're also giving Hardin, Wisconsin $25,000 for economic development.
Well,
And
they lease the spot.
Right, but so you've got two entities that are receiving city funding for economic development housed in the same building. So now we're two funding sources going to two different people.
Well, 3, then we gotta add them. So, like I said, maybe the idea is that maybe we bring that in-house to say, we're gonna, just like I said, take that money we throw out and bring it in-house and have Adam oversee it, so when it becomes a project or something that we're currently looking at, then you would oversee that with more of like, this is how we go about it.
Almost like the
Maybe
lead
just
or
right,
something.
he would be the overseer.
The point
but-
guy and.
And then have the other person do the cold calls or working with local businesses or, I'm just,
What other, this year did we do to Reggie?
20,000?
Yeah,
You got 25 going to Hart.
23.5, wasn't it?
Yeah, you got 25 going to Hart, you're at 50,000 almost already.
Or even creating like a marketing internship, a semester internship thing. I think that's one thing that we very underutilize is the ability to use college graduates, or not necessarily college graduates, but almost college graduates in an internship capacity, and therefore they wouldn't, in a semester application, they wouldn't cross that 1,200 hour barrier that we would be responsible for retirement or other things.
760.
And talk about what a great partnership with the state. Right now, they're going through all of their programming and looking at what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. Maybe it's a commitment from the city that says we're gonna be willing to do this, would Midstate be willing to supply that?
Well, the Heart takes advantage of the business Midstate program. I actually got an internship there years ago through it, and they still hold that to this day. They always have an intern working in there. And I know I was able to build off a lot of it and get a lot of work done for them. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely an opportunity. Some to discuss. That's what I'm saying. Where do we refer this from here to make sure it doesn't slip through the cracks, and we don't have this conversation until.
Yeah, I'd like to see a person be able to hand off an interested project to Adam, and then he can run with it.
Right.
I think future
Committee of the whole.
Yeah.
Or even have it on the HR referral list. We could, in the meantime, we could put it on the Public Works referral list because we're the only ones that have a referral list.
That's a big key, Jim.
Do you want to?
Well, actually, I would just like to clarify that all referrals I receive actually make it our dinner, so we don't have anything on in the hopper. So.
Yeah, our list is right on.
No, they come in, we put it on the agenda. We don't have it as extensive as Public Works has a lot more stuff coming in.
Or the
So.
legislative committee.
yeah.
Legislative committee, there you go.
I think that,
All right.
No, that's wrong. Thanks, Shane, for your idea there.
You're welcome. Needed something to do.
Yeah.
You want to see your family.
Yeah.
What's next, Adam? Sorry.
Anything else on community development?
I think that's a good idea, though.
Okay. Then I'll move to inspection services, if that's okay.
I was going to ask. I'm sorry. What does a community development specialist do?
Well, how it was originally envisioned was a full-time standalone position that was going to basically be focusing on community development. What that means is working with local businesses, specific, probably more on the downtown area, and then working on neighborhood outreach. So working and trying to establish neighborhood watch groups or
Isn't that a police department
cleanups.
function, or we used to do it in the police department, neighborhood watch groups?
Yeah. Well, that may
Okay.
kind of, yeah,
Right.
more along the lines of trying to get groups together that would maybe want to host their own block party,
Okay.
or trying to reconnect neighborhoods and actually create a neighborhood feel. That's how it was envisioned. When it was, because of budgetary reasons and retirement, when my administrative assistant left, the community development specialist became half administrative assistant.
That's right, because
half
you don't have one in here, administrative
community,
assistant anymore. Yeah.
So, and then with the reduction to 32 hours, now I would say probably over 50% is administrative assistant, and then the remainder of that is project planning. So right now, for example, she's working with a Main Street or a downtown group that is building momentum and beginning to look at things like the new events, or potentially looking at the Main Street program. She's working on working with the YMCA, the city, and Boys and Girls Club, and encourage, because of the multiple projects that are going on right now, how best to tie those together so that they take advantage of each other, they're not duplicating. So she's that project person. She deals with health impact analysis, looking at a project and saying, how will this impact health, and how can we tweak it to better improve health? So it's a lot of those larger projects, so she does that, and then administrative.
Plus office stuff. Okay. Just that was a new position for me that I wasn't aware of.
Again, it's morphed over the,
Usually does.
from when it was originally budgeted, but yes.
Okay, thank you.
So inspection services, we have traditionally had 2 inspectors, at least for the last few years, in that position. We've done our best to try and cover, there's 6 or 7 certifications that ultimately you need to be able to cover all inspections in the city. There's 4 residential and 3 commercial. Prior to Dale Bates retiring about 6-8 months ago, we had everything but commercial electrical in-house. When he retired, we hired a new person in. We were able to keep all residential and commercial plumbing in-house, but we've had to since contract out commercial building, as well as continuing to contract out commercial electrical. Unfortunately, once again, another inspector left to take another job, so I currently have 1 inspector. We are covering residential and again commercial plumbing with that 1 inspector as best we can, and then we are currently recruiting to refill that position. If we are unsuccessful in that, I've been asked by the mayor and others to look at alternatives. Basically anything is on the table, whether or not that's continuing to just recruit to try and fill in-house, or that's looking at outsourcing it to a third party and trying to get a sense of what those costs would be, again, and what impact that would have on customer service, because that's a huge difference between having in-house and out stuff. And then we're even looking at creatively just talking on the side with some other municipalities and looking if there's a way to do a regional approach, because we're not the only municipality that struggles to keep all those credentials.
Why is that?
I was just gonna ask, what is
it wages or is it?
Well, it's actually right now there's an inspector's shortage.
Okay.
If you are a member of any of the inspector groups, there is constantly coming through. People are looking for inspectors. With the downturn in the economy, a lot of contractors got out of the game, and now that it's picking up, there aren't actually enough contractors necessarily even. And then if you can make what you make as a contractor versus an inspector, then it becomes a little bit of a wage thing. Our wages, we've compared it to like Marshfield, Point, Wausau, so we're in that ballpark with them. We're at least competitive with that, but then again, you compare that to a larger municipality, they're gonna be able to pay more. It's just the nature of the game. So it's a number of factors, but it's always been a struggle ever since I started here 8 years ago. We've had a revolving door. We're lucky we keep someone until they retire, or I've had one go back to the state. This one took another job somewhere else. The previous one who had just gotten trained up went to another one. We've tried to be flexible because we have not been able to bring in someone with just all the credentials we want. We've trained in-house to try and cover that gap. That's a nice process if you can keep them.
Right.
I mean, our current remaining inspector, all he had was plumbing, and we've got him building residential electricals to try and fill that gap as best we can.
That's what's unfortunate is we put this money into training them and then if it's a wage thing, I would just hope that we explore that so we're not putting training into a guy when we can just add that on to the salary and hopefully keep.
And for the most part, the training, and we're not talking tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, it's making sure they have the right books, they have to study, and they have to go take a test. So the cost of training them isn't as bad as it would be for maybe some other positions, if you can get someone who has some knowledge base. So ideally, you're still looking for someone who's been a builder or has worked in one of the trades. So just kind of a heads up on that.
So we're short one.
Currently, we're short one.
We're back to short one.
Yeah, as far as changes in the budget, we were looking at a tweak to telephone. We were going to move one from a city-issued cell phone to a stipend, and I think we've just seen some cost overruns in telephone. Plus, we were looking at some data. Our current permitting software is internet-based, so all inspections, all plans can be viewed online anywhere. So we are looking at upgrading them to iPads, which would have actually mobile capabilities. So that's where that increase was being proposed.
Is it through the same software that we already put in, the iPads?
Yep, and it's just getting the technology to use our permitting. The software maintenance at 1,800, as was discussed in Tom's budget. Once you're with someone over time, it's a subscription. It's an internet-based program, so there wasn't a purchase up front. It's just an ongoing annual maintenance. I have begun to look at, with the transition to the financial software and the HR software, they offer a building permit software. Quite honestly, the upfront cost there is astronomical compared to, I think it's $150,000 or something like that. But still, looking at it long term, it's at a better fit based on capabilities. And so really beginning over the next year, I'll be looking at alternatives to make sure that we're with the right vendor on that. And then the contractor services, that's our commercial electrical and our commercial building inspections. And again, that's based on staff turnover to keep all those here so that we can remain a delegated community, meaning if you're doing a small commercial project, the ability to come into our department, have your plans reviewed and inspected here rather than having to deal with the state. So that investment, at least in my opinion, has been necessary to try and keep that level of customer service.
I think the builders would be pretty upset if they had to go to the state all the time.
Obviously, if it's a big project, it's standard operating procedure. But yeah, if it's something even like the Dunkin' Donuts, the majority of that can be reviewed locally because of that designated community or delegated committee, so.
What is the cutoff, like 25,000 cubic feet or something like that?
50,000 cubic feet. Yep.
So Adam, how did you get your health insurance dental?
I'd have to defer to Tim on that one, I'm guessing that's
Oh, where are we?
the inspector.
Health insurance dental.
Oh,
The inspector we
actually,
had
the
was
new
not
inspector, did not elect,
Oh, okay.
so that's why it dropped, but
So that may change.
when we hire someone else, that could change, and we'll have to
Let's
adjust
get
the
it
budget,
to
but that's why that
I'm
decreased.
sure that's what I thought, but I wanted to make sure that for some reason they weren't just healthcare.
So,
That's what I have for-
Adam, I just wanna maybe get a little better understanding. So what we did was we spent $250,000 and we went to get a finance and HR software.
Mhm.
But we didn't include your department, so now we're looking at different software for your department?
No, well, because our department has existing software. It works, but what I'm saying is I'm beginning to look at other alternatives. What I'm looking at would be to fit in with what theirs is, because a lot of times cities end up having 8 departments and all are using different vendors
Right,
for
that's
software.
I guess
so
what I'm
we can
reading, I thought
integrate.
that was to show that up.
But ours, we've had ours since right before I started, so we've had it for 9 years, and it works. So there wasn't a need to look at it right away. Again, they were looking at a 2 to 3 year integration anyway, so ours would have been way after that.
Right, the initial was, look for new HR software, well, they don't even have new, actually get HR software and new financial. And, so we looked at a number of different platforms and Munis was chosen. Munis does offer a variety of other modules. And I guess the theory there is that we're getting finance and HR implemented, but in the future, we could start incorporating some of that, like Adam's stuff, permitting, so that eventually at some point in the future, we could all have one platform. So, it
But
doesn't,
again, it's not.
it doesn't cost you anything, you'd have to buy the module, so it's not like, you get a discount for if you add this module. So there is options down the road where you can bring in, they even have assessing software, but it all depends on, you gotta evaluate whether that's just because they have the module doesn't mean that it will fit the department's needs. But in the future, we could expand and bring more things under the Munis platform. It all depends if it makes sense and works for that department. So we're not ruling out, because we can always add on modules at any point in time. There's even stuff in the financial realm that down the road I could add on different financial modules as,
It just wasn't explained
Mhm.
with the new software that we were excluding other departments because they have different software and we're not looking at the same platform, and that if down the road we decide to go to the same platform, they have different modules. But it just wasn't explained to me that way, so unless you guys are different, I guess.
No, that's exactly what it is that the new software that we've got is a la carte. They may offer it, they may not offer it, but it's a case where even if we did piggyback it, it would cost probably the same, if not more, to bundle it now than if we did, because they might give us a deal like, hey, if you go with us now, we'll give you 10% discount type of a thing. So, but they're all separate type of deals with that.
Anything else on
Mr.
inspection?
Chairman.
Go ahead.
No, you're up, I guess, I don't know.
No, I'm,
Yeah, I don't have.
I guess last one is ordinance control. So of the budgets, I guess this one probably has the biggest change in it, or at least proposed change, and that is pretty much everything is status quo in the budget, with the exception of looking at the possibility of adding basically a limited term employee, about a half-time person, to help out with ordinance control. The thought behind that is with the launch of the recycling, single stream recycling, and the expected launching of the garbage, I'm seeing a huge increase in the amount of time that the one ordinance officer is spending with that. I mean, I ran some quick numbers just to make sure I wasn't just thinking it.
You can tell that I sent you an email questioning. If you want to bring that out, you can say.
And not even looking at just the number of citations issued, but just the number of cases that he's dealing with. In 2015, the total caseload for the ordinance officer was 843. Of that, approximately 43% was with what I call the big three. That's garbage, that's lawn grass, and that's snow shoveling. In 2016, the number went up from that. Didn't go up all that much. It went from 843 to 873, but even then we were beginning to see a little more increase, and by then we were at 52% on those big three. In 2017, that's when we launched, at least did a partial launch of the recycling. Our totals jumped up to 1,116, and then the percentage went to 77% on those big three. The biggest increase being in garbage recycling issues. And then so far this year, we're at 1,470 total cases, and 80% of that is the big three. So that's not a problem, but those big three are kind of those little things. It doesn't help with some of the neighborhood degradation issues we're seeing, some of the major cases. It doesn't deal with cars parked on the grass. It doesn't deal with peeling paint, broken windows, some of those larger issues that can really start to pull a neighborhood down. Recycling is important, but if someone's not recycling, it's probably not impacting the neighbor's property value. Grass, it does. Snow shoveling, probably not. So it's really I guess a philosophy question on, are we happy with what we're enforcing, and is that the purpose of the ordinance control officer? Or, in my opinion, I guess looking at a half-time person to really deal with those little easy things. I mean, they're not hard enforcement, it's just time-consuming. It's knocking on doors, it's explaining ordinances, it's getting compliance, or running the paperwork through to have the city clean it up, or doing one up, and then that would help free up the full-time officer to deal with those bigger issues.
What was the spike when we implemented the new recycling?
As far as overall cases.
Is it more education? It comes down to education more.
Right, and
people get them if the recycling container spun the wrong way.
Right.
They're getting a letter saying that the recycling container is spun the wrong way.
Yeah.
Or there's a form letter.
Yeah, and we are working on a program that we're trying to minimize the need for the ordinance officer to be involved in recycling. So we're in a test pilot, I guess I would call it, looking at different communications that ideally it never gets to Ray. It's really just a hanger or a letter that goes out in the street department. It's too early really to see. It looks like maybe we'll get some increase there. But again, just knowing the spike we had with recycling, which went from 800 in some cases up to, we're already up to 1,400.
Okay, so it almost doubled with implementing. So we could expect to see something similar, I'm sure, with garbage. If not,
I don't know. I don't know if garbage is easier to understand. I mean, if it's garbage, it's garbage. So then hopefully you're just dealing with people putting it on the side of the container, which isn't going to do them any good if it's being picked up automatically, or they're turning the container the wrong way. So I'm hoping there won't be as big an increase. But even with what we've seen already, I guess.
I've had people ask me, well, what if I got more than what goes in the bin? So I can imagine we're going to see a lot of people.
Find a place to store it for 2 weeks.
Yeah, or
jump on it. Jump on it to pack it in there.
But if you look, like, at the street department budget, just the recycling, that our recycling tonnage is actually going up.
Right.
So
it's a good
is,
thing. Yeah.
There is, when you go from 815 tons in 2016 to 1,165.
And that saved us on tipping fees too.
Yeah. No, I'm saying I definitely need a half-time person.
Well, so I heard that the police department now is going to be doing code enforcement.
That was my question too.
Because it used to be, I remember when the police department did it, and then late Dennis Wiggins was very passionate about cleanup around the community, and then we had at that time there was 3-4 ordinance LTEs. And so the police department pretty much backed off, and then it kind of morphed into one full-time, and now I heard the police department's taking it back.
So my question with this is, the police department handling the ordinance, I think that's more, the way that they're going to enforce it is completely different than what Ray has been doing. And I just got an email actually, and I'm not sure how to look into it, but an officer had someone who was parking on a gravel
and just wrote him $313 ticket. And allegedly, and I haven't found out for sure yet, there was no warning or anything, because this is something that's, been going on. They've been parking there for 10 years or whatever, but
But a gravel surface counts as a hard packed surface, correct?
Under the old ordinance, yes. Under the new ordinance, no.
Oh.
But again, if it's an existing gravel area, then that's a different thing. If it's a new gravel under the new code, that would be a violation.
So like.
and this is existing. This is next to a driveway. I looked at the pictures and stuff, and I'll forward you the email.
Yeah.
But I mean, is that something we really want the PD to do, or if they are going to, then do we need the halftime?
And I can provide a little bit of background on that as well.
I feel like with all the stuff we got going on in our community and focus on drugs, if we got about enforcing ordinances, people are gonna be like, really, that's how we're.
Does it depend on the ordinance though?
But, right, I was gonna agree with you, like nuisance, cleanup, nuisance, I think that's neighborhood degradation, which leads to other issues and nuisance type things, and I think the police department should. We've been wrestling with this ordinance thing for years now, and we haven't had a very successful solution, because I would say we all get phone calls on that, those properties in our neighborhood that has issues. I think maybe it's the old cop in me, but I'm okay with enforcement. Now, is there a time for education? Absolutely. Especially an ordinance, a zoning change where you could park on gravel at one point, but now you can't. Well, but maybe that's not something that we should. That would be a Ray thing to deal with, or.
And it sounds like they can though still.
Yeah, I mean, it's an ordinance. The police department has every right to enforce an ordinance.
Any ordinance,
It does not have to be an ordinance control officer.
And that's the way it always was.
Yep, and what has been asked of the police department, we basically put together a list of 4 or 5 common violations that basically just asking them to either, number one, just see, click, fix it, because we can just report it and then Ray will follow up on it, because then that makes his job easier to do more, because he's not having to go look and verify whether or not these are violations. If the PD is the person reporting it, there's a picture attached to it, he can move directly to basically his enforcement process. So that's been one ask. And then there's been other asks that, let's say they're at a domestic disturbance or some other issue and they're at a house and they notice that there's broken windows and there's crap in the yard. They have every right to enforce it there. So that's what we're really trying to do. And some of those other things like parking on grass, it doesn't matter. If you're parking on grass, it's a violation. So some of those things I know they've been running with and they have picked it up, and that's been that's only over the last week or two that we put together a memo requesting it after talking with the police chief. He basically asked us to kind of give a top 5 things to work on. And again, from his perspective, I don't want to fully speak for him, but it's that broken windows theory.
Absolutely.
It brings down a neighborhood, and if his guys are out there and they have the time, they should be writing the citations. So yes, hopefully that'll help. And again, if the council wants to give this another year to see if that increased enforcement, see how the garbage rolls out, and then kind of see how it pans out. Again, I'm okay with that. I just want to make sure that you're aware of the increase in this department.
I think I don't know. I noticed more areas of concern on nuisance, and they get reported and people report it, so that's good. But we went from I'm going to bring up the numbers asked for. In 17, we had 77 citations issued, and then this year we're at 7 on code enforcement. So I'm okay with a little more aggressiveness.
I 100% agree with you.
On those top ones, because I think there's been enough trying to educate for many years on working with very similar properties, and you get the spring snow melts and then the phones start ringing because everybody starts seeing it again.
It's the same tenants a lot of times, or the same property owners who don't explain to their tenants what. I saw 2 houses down from me a recycle bin with garbage over. What's not recycle day? But and I'm like, what? So if the police department has obviously the time, and actually writing tickets once in a while is fine with me, but.
But I think it's the top, those really big items, I feel more comfortable, especially, the neighborhood nuisance things, those are really something that really need to be aggressive on.
Semi-tractors parking all over the city streets.
Yeah, and, well, actually, semi-tractors, I think, are illegal. If they're at their residence, they can drive it to their overnight and
You're
stuff.
allowed one as long as it's on a hard surface on your private property.
It's gotta be parked
Can't
in
be
the wow.
It cannot be.
But a lot of our, I know we're getting in the weeds, I think, a little bit, but I always wondered that too, because they're
They're all
overweight,
over.
Oh, yeah, they're overweight.
Oh, they're all
for
over
certain
my
streets.
Really?
But,
That's what the ordinance
oh,
says.
okay.
But I agree,
Right, sure.
and maybe I'm in favor of waiting on the LTE year and see how, but, maybe there needs to be, is vehicles parked on grass one of the top 5, or, it is?
I mean, that.
I didn't know,
that's-
is it a common?
That's the one where we get more and more complaints on because
really?
it has a greater visual impact than.
Well, it's like the
It
garbage.
seems
I don't
like a simple
wanna-
thing, but it really actually, you drive by a home where there's 2 or 3 cars parked on the grass versus one where.
Into
there's
this
not.
situation
That's the
that
thing, they park in the grass, you get, instead of 1 or 2 in the driveway, you got 4, 5, 6, and 7
Right.
We get the,
vehicles.
And
Start
I,
spreading.
when I saw for the incident that I was forwarded from my resident that was cited, it looks like to him, it's in improved surface. And it doesn't comply with the new zoning ordinance now, but it did just not even 6 months ago or whatever. So I can understand it, but the police department writing tickets for that, I mean, if they're gonna do it, I'm all for that, because I can probably, I don't know the house numbers, but I can give you the intersections of 3 different houses where there's 3, 4 vehicles that are parked all the time on the grass, and it's becoming asphalt slowly as the tires pack everything down.
the grass is rubbed off.
If
But,
the oil is leaking. out,
Yes,
right?
yeah, there you go, yeah. So, okay.
I didn't realize that was on the top 5.
I mean,
Well,
it's become more of an issue. We get a lot more complaints on that.
And it looks terrible. I mean,
Well, speaking along those lines, how does the habitual offender aspect work? Because I kind of dealt with one last year about that, and working with the police chief, there wasn't, I guess I couldn't understand how that actually worked, or what is necessary to actually actuate a habitual nuisance offender.
Yeah. You're talking the chronic nuisance?
Chronic nuisance,
Okay,
yeah.
I just want to make sure, at least as far as this year, looks like they've done 12 chronic nuisance determinations. Last year they had done 10 already. So basically that is triggered by either 1, a major offense, which is generally drug related, or 2, 3 minor offenses. So that can be, again, that can be public nuisance calls, that could be an ordinance issue, that could be some of those smaller issues. And then at that point, then they're basically brought in and said, if you don't give us a plan of how this is going to be remedied, next time we're called out there, we have the ability to charge you for that service.
And does that nuisance violator have to be issued a citation 3 times, or does it have to get to that point, or is it a verbal warning, 3 verbal warnings, and then
It's got to be documented.
Documented.
So it's got to be cited. So that can be an enforcement letter, or that can be a citation.
Okay.
Or written report. So this has to be documented. It can't be pulling up and saying fix this.
Is it within a certain time period?
It is within a certain
180 days,
time.
6 months.
6 months?
6 months?
Is it, or did we lower it to 91 days or something like that?
Sorry.
For some reason, 120 was stuck in my head, but it was either 120 or 180 days. So it's either.
How's the see it, click it, fix it been working, and what's the response time on it?
It's going to vary. So I have tried to do those monthly reports to you to give you a sense on the activity on those. Obviously, city staff uses it heavily. It's worked really well for making it easy for the recycling driver to be able to document where there are issues, and then it's easily documented, and then either for rate of follow-up or this new system of sending out letters. So it's utilized that way very well. The ordinance officer uses it, again, just to really, it's easier and quicker to document that way. We do have public users on it. There are discussions on there. There's, I forget the percentage, I wanna say it's something like 20-25% of our reported issues are from just mobile devices. Response time, again, if it's a grass, sidewalk, something like that, it's days. If it's a house issue, because of the way we usually give a 30 or 60-day notice, so those tend to drag out longer. I'm not as familiar with like the street department or the PD, the ones that go to their departments, because it does get routed to the appropriate department. So I'm not as familiar with that, but again, that should hopefully be somewhat documented in that monthly report.
So I don't think as a committee we gave Adam an answer on that limited term position.
I guess personally, let's wait and see a year, see how much workload is freed up with the PD involved more now.
And if
I'm sorry, you had brought up 36. Is there any way maybe to be more effective is to shorten those time limits, or?
And those were ones that were developed in a policy, so it's not anything that's in the ordinance.
Okay.
There's not a specific time.
I didn't know if we could.
But yes, we can
Maybe.
tighten it. It is, again, it's a policy, it's not a ordinance.
So we're probably getting to the point where now most of these places can't be a lot of new places all the time, is there? Unless it's people moving. But is it new people? Is it?
Well, and that's for a building code issue. That would be like a
Oh,
roof that
okay.
needs replacing.
Oh, I always
windows.
thought it was a nuisance.
A yard one is
cleanup.
generally 7 to 10 days.
Oh, okay, that's perfect.
So we do have a sliding scale depending on the severity of the issue.
Oh, okay. I
Grass
was
mowing
thinking,
is
yeah.
3 days. Yeah,
Yeah.
so everyone is slightly different.
Oh, I was thinking of 30 days. I was like, wow, I got a long time.
Yeah,
Cleaned up.
that's
You
usually
ride that out a couple of
something
months and you're good, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Rather than part-time, you may want to consider hourly. I'm thinking seasonal.
That's what the LTE
Summer,
would be, yeah.
it'd be more of a problem in the fall, et cetera. The winter possibly not, except for sidewalks, but maybe hourly, so when you need it, maybe you have a part-time person that could come in, retired person, whomever, and could, take care of a backlog, and then, rather than hiring somebody part-time and then having a short list of things to do, let's say.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how much relief the ordinance control officer will get with the PD assisting, or how much extra they'll find and forward.
Well, yeah, and that's, so I'm guessing the number of violations will go up, but is that actually an impact on Ray, or is it actually making his job easier and more efficient?
Right.
So that's what, short of talking with them in a year and to figure out, yeah.
But people have been told for how long now, don't call the PD with this, call the ordinance officer, now.
And that's still good, but there's no need to change that.
Okay.
By any means, if it's something that we're made aware of, we will follow up on it. It's just what we've asked for the PD is while you're out there, you guys are out in the field, your eyes on the ground, we would like your assistance.
But I mean, there could be an issue that they could just resolve, right? Potentially.
Or
Hey, don't
if-
work there.
Or if there's a lot of junk, they might just write them a ticket and be done with it.
Right.
Which,
Yeah, I have no problem with the PD enforcing ordinances, but I would definitely be in favor of having additional ordinance officer assistance, just so that we don't get, I don't know what the workload is out there for you guys, but I would, want us to focus more on some of the stuff that's going on in the community that is really bad,
Right.
that needs a police officer's attention versus, I would enforce ordinances all the time when we,
Where I think, you might see it ebb and flow, depends on their workload, so they might also not.
That's the job,
Right,
prioritize.
right, so,
Right.
but yeah, I think definitely having an ordinance control officer still there working all those other type of complaints is very necessary, because otherwise, that's the original reason why ordinance control started years ago. I remember that, because the police department, doesn't have time to, and then some of those things were, parks did grass, engineering did snow, and so it got all spread out to multiple departments, where at least now it's always under one person and it's all kind of coordinated there.
So you do want to leave it in the
I do, yeah.
The ordinance control officer?
the LT?
I'm not in favor of LT.
I was leaning towards holding off a year also, for the additional spot, just to see how the PD can maybe help Ray out, or
Yeah.
Assuming Ray does it for the whole rest of the year, but,
He's retired, he can go anytime.
he is, yeah, he can.
My concern would just be the garbage rollout, and I mean, if it is gonna be a problem, we have almost a double with recycling.
Hopefully they're
Do we
getting
gotta put our
trained.
PD out there to go out?
Well, and that's why we got our ordinance control
but
officer, I think.
it sounds like, with what
The
he's
thing-
currently got, can we
The
add?
thing is though, is people are going to put stuff out that doesn't fit in there. It's
gonna happen a lot.
You can have half the houses, and the city probably doing that
Exactly.
first.
That's
So-
why I think we need the additional help.
So just to let you know that the Public Works Department, I don't want to misspeak, they're looking at doing, readers.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, the
on their
RFI
arm
readers.
that would automatically send a citation for, so the garbage truck guy picks it down, or
Right.
goes down, picks it up, there's a violation there, reads the can, kicks out.
So is that that's going to be in place at the rollout though, or is that down the
new
road?
garbage
Because
trucks,
all
that's
those
an
bids
option.
Okay, so that's already gonna be in place at the
Right, so a
start.
lot of the
I don't know about-
garbage related issues and stuff like that should be taken care of as far as on the public works side, right?
I would think it'd be forwarded to probably the ordinance control, I would think, to write the citation.
So they're still gonna have
Somehow it was gonna be dinged, those cans would be dinged, so it was
Yeah.
with the appropriate house number because they're all ID'd.
Yep, and I think I think they're gonna, yeah, because the
They are
RFI,
now.
the readers,
Recycles are too.
but, yeah,
But we don't.
but I
get the
still think
reader.
somebody still has to write the citation.
Yeah, so there's
Only-
still gonna be some going out there.
Only ordinance controller, police can write the tickets.
Right.
So,
So, yeah,
And
that's,
that's-
we
we
submit
want
all
that.
that, but that streamlines the notification
right,
process.
streamlined, yeah, absolutely,
Streamlines,
yeah,
right.
And again,
absolutely.
we've been
So-
working on a different policy with different letters and things that are more user-friendly, or, well, that's.
And I think people hopefully are a little more trained with, or again, gonna be better trained or something with the.
I think
with
we
the-
might have more trouble with the garbage than we did the recycling.
Yeah, I think with the quantity.
Well, yeah, I mean, if someone just doesn't know, I don't know that they need a ticket. The chronic violators,
Right,
yes, but
it's a letter thing, yeah.
But we're going from historically, you could throw everything out
And
on the
that's-
curb to now fit
no,
in
I'm
the bin.
checking.
I just think that a lot of people
I don't think they need.
aren't gonna care. I mean, I'm not gonna say, as a homeowner, I would never do that. I
Well,
might, but
you're limited now. You're limited to 96 gallons
Right.
of.
You're supposed to be,
technically.
Yeah, it's.
Well, it's three
332
gallons, right?
I thought it was only two.
I thought
Yeah,
it was
3, I think, so it'd be 96, yeah.
Which is what you're having now.
So, but yeah, technically.
they're
but-
picking more up than that, yeah.
Well, they obviously are because there's not a mountain of garbage down the road anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I feel like
Well, how bad is the need? You think? I mean,
Well, again, I'm just using historical numbers, and I think it's gonna be bad, but I can't guarantee that.
Or do we try it this year with the LTE
Right, and then make the decision.
and make the decision, because it's LTE.
I'm fine
so-
with that, a trial, yeah.
what if you don't need it?
But-
You can just cancel all the hours, right? So,
Yeah, I'm fine with that. If we would give a trial, or if it ends up we don't
But
need
I
it.
think it's probably because with all the unknowns, maybe, I don't know, maybe the concern is, well, all of a sudden then you need somebody and now you're scrambling to find somebody.
Exactly, and then,
I
yeah,
don't know. I don't know.
it's the unknown, and I think rolling out a brand new garbage system, we're gonna want that there.
Yeah, even if it's a 1 year position.
If it's
three
1 year,
members,
that's fine, and then we go around and everybody learns and we go from there, and then, but otherwise, I mean, we might have double the calls we had last year, and then we're stuck sending PD out or whoever on all these calls for garbage when.
I think it may be
We got a heroin
harder to
problem
get
in the
somebody
city.
after the fact.
Well, but it's only 7 citations.
Well, that's true. It was only,
But it's probably 600 contacts.
probably more than that.
Well, 1,100. It's
Right.
1,100 contacts. But if it's automated through the recycling system to automate that letter, that right there cuts down on half your calls.
But I mean,
absolutely.
right. Right.
Again, it's an unknown. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that absolutely you need this. It's something that I've seen coming. I want to make sure that the council's aware of it. We'll make it work.
Can you imagine if it's a big problem though, and we didn't take the steps to make sure we don't have garbage all over the city though? We're all gonna be getting calls. But I just think we could put it in, and if it's a year, and then we think at the end of the year, we are not having to issue as many citations anymore. We're not sending people out, people learn. Or we get to it and we don't really need it, then we just.
Is there a
don't
limit
use it.
to what,
So,
100 hours, or is it, LTs are limited to how many hours?
Let's see, affordable care, what is it? Yeah,
WRS is usually it's 1,200 now.
LT 1200 is
1200?
is
11.99.
Two, I think, isn't it?
but 1200. Well, WRS I do believe is 1200, and then you got Affordable Care Act, so you gotta be careful of that too.
So we're not talking,
No, I mean it's
we're talking like,
yeah. I mean
half.
I think yeah. I'm trying to think. Let me look here what our current ones are.
yeah, I'm just, now I think about it, what are we gonna have, but you said, like you said, if there's a garbage issue, you read the RFI and send a letter.
Well, I don't know if
We're gonna, I think we're gonna have to clarify how that's.
we gotta double check, because I know that,
Make sure.
Mr. Ballard mentioned that we could put those on there. I don't know if those trucks were ordered with those readers, because you can both read it and also take a camera. But I don't
Like,
know.
what if the neighborhood kids knocked it over? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It can't, there's no way to.
It'd be a letter, I would think.
Yeah.
I know, I've seen the wind take over my neighbors
Well,
or
and that's
something,
it.
man.
What if that happens? I mean, then, yeah. All right. Well, I guess.
You're gonna need to do a PowerPoint after this 1 year, like 10-page thesis.
Yes. Dummy down.
A doctorate
We don't have to do
paper.
that. We'll be impressed. I don't want to have to do that.
Yeah, there's
so
much, I mean, I guess where do we wanna spend our money as a council, is what I'm saying. I hear what you're.
What are you talking about?
For the position.
Anything else for this?
I just,
Are you gonna have any future budget meetings anymore?
We have,
yes, we will, won't we?
well, when does the budget normally get?
We have the public hearing on November 20th. So
Okay. So
basically,
December.
I think is obviously we have our regularly scheduled
It is December council? I thought it was November.
November. Did I say December?
Yeah.
No,
You said November
you said
20th was the
November.
public hearing.
Yeah, exactly. That's where you set you adopt the budget. or
Okay.
approve the
Oh,
budget.
is that's before full council?
Yeah,
Well, what we'll have is we'll have a public hearing. It'll be at the beginning of the council meeting, a public hearing, then you adopt the
Oh, sure.
resolutions.
Okay.
the county treasurer needs it by the first week of December,
Yeah.
so.
So that's where
So we'll have November 6th, we'll have a regular meeting
and then I would suggest November 13th
also. Yeah.
and then that'd be kind of like all right,
Yep.
this is it, get the budget and final, because usually like when you go to a public hearing, you like it to be kind of like settled,
Sure.
from the city standpoint.
Right.
And then you have the public hearing and then you adopt it. So I would suggest having something on the 13th as fine as, okay.
So I want to do wastewater
Final.
yet, and
I think, and when we set the next meeting date, I think we'll talk about who we want there.
is there, I don't know if we want to spend time on it, but do we want to look at some of the other budgets and knock them out? Real quick?
I can't tonight, but if you guys have me here done it.
Are we done with this? Yeah, I think we are.
Yeah.
You want to do finance? You want to meet up on finance?
Oh, you're here, why don't we do that? Get that out of the way. Thanks, Adam.
Take care. We can do finance or.
Yeah, ILT, I'm just struggling with yet. It's $20,000.
That's why I mean,
I know, it's $20,000.
I personally feel we could hold off.
And then
I mean, our ordinance officer handles what he can handle.
Right.
And I mean, that's on us if there's a bunch of stuff unanswered, I guess, but
It's the
now with the
garbage.
PD helping, I think that's going to be absolutely huge.
Yeah, and then if garbage is a priority, well, and then the rollout's going to be March, or when is
Probably April, May.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you're just going to kick the
Memorial
season, so.
weekend, I think,
Yeah.
But
Trucks are ordered.
We educate
majority
them.
rules, so I mean, if you two disagree.
Man, I don't know, I
I
wish Adam was still here, but I
said, what I thought.
Well, I mean, like I said, on the 13th is kind of what you.
Yeah, I'm also in favor of holding on to $20,000, because if garbage is the priority at the time, well, the grass complaints will just have to hold off, or just kind of handle what's the most pressing at the moment, and Yeah, it's coming in another $20,000 to.
I feel like that's part of rolling out a whole new system, though. That's part of their.
But we didn't do that with recycling.
Look at all the.
I just struggle with looking at the one issue thing. I mean, I think complaints as a whole could justify a position, but I mean, just implementing one new thing. I'm like,
it would spike by.
We've had,
like 60-70%.
I remember one summer we had a guy working all summer long doing recycling complaints, and it just was never carried on. It's just.
And that's all I think that would need to happen with this. It'd be probably the 1 year, so everybody gets it right. But I think this is going to be a bigger problem than the recycling. Recycling is I feel like pretty cut and dry. You get the bin, you throw your recycling in. But now we're going from a system of how many decades have you been able to just put your trash out on the curb, whether it be in 2-3 barrels or just out in a bag, to now fit this all in there I've said it.
Yeah, I know. I struggle with it too because it's just.
Well, this should be a perfect example of the unknown unknowns that we don't know about implementing a new program. This was billed as being a cost savings program. It's going to be more efficient and everything else, but there are other extenuating circumstances with coming with this, and the rollout of the recycling containers was not the best, and we're learning with it. But that should also go with a lot of other projects that we potentially look at as, an element of the unknowns. And although it might be saving a little bit on the public works side, for efficiency and strain on
workers. We're paying for it on another side.
Yeah, but there is going to be a trade-off a little bit. And now we're dealing with those effects. So, as we move forward in the budget, looking at other particular projects, there are going to be potential costs that we're not seeing right in front of us,
And I think if we were to, operate, like if I was a business, say, rolling out something brand new, and the amount we're spending on it, an extra $20,000 to make sure that it goes right, what is that, an extra 5% on top? I would take that insurance every time.
I guess I was gonna say it's hard to find somebody, but you can find a mid-state student going to criminal justice or something.
Something, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it needs to be the $20,000. It could be, as Scott mentioned, an hourly, someone who's retired, we could bring on. But I think there needs to be something there, because I'd hate to. If they're out there and you guys got time, by all means out there enforcing ordinances. But I know the public, and I feel especially that we got other problems here that I hate to see us get caught up in this garbage situation and then trying to keep up with it. We're doing stuff when we could be working on more pressing issues. But yeah, I'm not saying it's got to be the 20, but I think there needs to be some type of solution there. So, but
is there any office furniture anywhere we can cut?
I think if we're not sure, I guess let's leave it. Let's just if he doesn't need the guy, the $20,000, then he doesn't.
Not anymore.
Well, we pretty much, I think we've almost completed. I think the only real requests coming in are people want this
The stand-up?
Stand-sit module, which is, probably, in hindsight, when we should have made it mandatory when you get a new desk that you have an option whether you use it or not, but at least it's there. But it's not too expensive. And it's a good,
I gotta go get my son, so I might be able to push it until 8.
It's good, especially when you're at a desk all day.
It's nice.
Do finance.
Because
there's a lot of them. But before we get going, just not to rehash something, but I don't know, did anybody read your engineering report on the Riverwall? I did. And then I went down there and looked at the Riverwall. And I guess something for thought for next meetings is, my concern is that in the Riverwall, they did a couple of test digs or by the wall. And they did not even do a visual inspection of the whole wall from the wall side. And my concern is if we're looking at possibly spending $1.5 million to do a park, I think the first concern should be making sure the wall is good for the next 20 years.
Where did you get that? Did we get that report?
Yeah, it was emailed to us. So
who did we get it?
They did not look at it?
It was not inspected.
The other thing that was interesting is by the clock tower, they have sunken concrete.
Right, there's
That was
some,
brought up.
yeah, and so.
That was
I think
Not
kind
there in the
of, it's
finance.
brought up, it kind of smoothed over.
And so.
I guess I missed it, but yeah, they had sunken concrete, so they're losing their subgrade because of the river wall.
Who sent it
Park.
I think we got it from Joe Eichstedt.
It's eroding
Oh,
away.
here we go.
So my concern is all of a sudden we spend $1.5 million on a park, and in 2 years we got to drive through that park to repair the wall. And I don't know. I struggle with the concept of spending any money in that park until we have concrete, absolutely for sure. Aside from somebody blowing it up, that we're not going to have to do any work for a long time on that wall.
Well, and that was, I asked Joe about that, and he did say that wall should be good for decades to come.
Yeah, because this report doesn't say that.
Yeah, well, then I guess maybe it's.
Well, it doesn't specifically state that. You know, it says that we need to do maintenance, cleaning weep holes. I don't know if anybody's ever cleaned any weep holes in the river wall. And yeah, and then there's sunken areas, and we only dug 2 test areas. One they hit a foundation of an old building in the park there, Veterans Park, and the other one they were able to dig down. So really, we got 1 hole dug, and so that's a concern I have. Something for you guys to just want to put in the back of your brain, but
No, that's something good. I mean, hopefully.
Somewhere in here it says that there was not, and I was going to highlight it too. There was not a visual inspection done of the wall. There was something else that they didn't do because in the cost savings. But it says that.
I believe you, but it's hard to believe.
What's that?
I believe you, but it's hard to believe that there wasn't a visual.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I don't know. And we could have Joe come back in.
I thought
that. I would think that.
Told us it.
I'd hate to say that he's wrong.
I'm with Scott on that.
I mean, it's like basic 101
Yeah.
inspection.
I will
I'm
find
not
it
an
before
engineer,
we
but
end.
that's probably the first thing I would do.
I think you get it clarified.
Yeah, we just have Joe email.
So that item, I think we kind of decided to leave as a standalone item, right?
Right. Yeah, to go up.
Right, because it's saying a full joint assessment is necessary, so a joint assessment should be done.
So I wonder, do we
Mortar should be tested to make
wait
sure.
until
I
budget
just
to decide if we're gonna approve that or not, or how do we?
I thought that was the plan.
That's just what we do.
Yeah,
Wait until the November.
That was how we left it last time. Was that we were just going to leave it.
Okay.
Up or down vote.
Yeah, but we'll obviously want clarification on that.
full assessment of the condition of the wall was not performed.
Where's that?
This is under general assessment of the river wall.
What page?
That's 97.
Can we?
This would include thorough documentation of full length of the height of the wall with inspections made from both the shoreline and the riverside. So that wasn't even done.
That's the bottom paragraph on page 97. A full assessment of the condition of the wall was not performed.
Yeah, so
This would include.
Why don't we get it on the next agenda? Can we see if Joe, like I said, can
yeah, so that,
be on that agenda?
I just don't want us to.
For the river.
The 6th or the 13th?
Well, I guess it doesn't matter.
I mean, it depends on how long it's, because we're gonna have other.
Or if you can
6
respond, or if you can just even respond to an email on us.
Yeah, an email would be sufficient.
Or something, because I just
Okay,
don't.
so you want him to.
Well, we wouldn't want them to necessarily meet. I mean,
Well,
it's
yeah,
kind of
we want to question.
yeah.
Because that's my concern is if you're looking at spending $1.5 million on a park, which obviously, but
How about both an email and I mean, I was like,
Well,
so then we got
you can, yeah.
I'll send them an email.
Yeah.
You guys gonna send him an email or do you want me to?
I think I'd
why
like
don't you
them on
send
there.
an email saying that we're requesting the Riverwall report, and if he could just respond with his
And then
So
we'll
why
have
don't
some
we
background
professional
going into
opinion
the meeting. We
about-
don't need to.
about
Bottom of page 97, last paragraph.
You want to comment on no visual inspection?
no visual inspection. So I just want to make sure
Bottom of
that
page 97, did you say?
yeah.
Last paragraph, 97.
But I just want to make sure that 2 years down the road, we're not looking at having to repair a river wall as they're driving heavy equipment on a new part. I don't know.
I see. What
I'd rather spend $1.5 million to fix the wall and look at doing phase 2 the year after.
I did ask him specifically. I remember that meeting if this wall was going to hold up, and he said it would be.
Well, Alderperson brought up this exact issue, and
The single.
And I'm sure you guys remember that's what we talked about,
That
that
soil
length.
particulars through weed holes. If weed holes are substantially discovered, they should be documented. Then the adjacent wall partition inspected and determined. But basically, it says right here in paragraph 3, sinkholes literally labeled on page 98.
Yeah, we don't have to.
Specified areas of concern, number 3.
Yeah, so I have concerns that we're gonna approve doing a park for $1.5 million, and then we're gonna have a mess on the wall.
Yeah, I could understand that. I mean, I just wouldn't want to question what Joe seemed to. I mean, he's the engineer. He seemed to know what he. So I'm fine with bringing him in and having him re-explain. But I'd say, I mean, I asked him straight up the question if the wall was.
I think November 13th. I think we should have him here, personally.
Well, yeah. I mean,
This is too big of an
get
item.
this cleared up
not
before we.
And you know, maybe put him in the beginning. That way, if no one wants to ask him anything, then you can just leave right away. But,
I don't.
but at least you can, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
You put dirty.
Well,
You put yours right at the top.
when this was originally created, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but Mr. Rayom, being on the, having history with the Public Works Committee, was this initially initiated as like a river wall stabilization project? That's where it kind of potentially
It was
started.
brought up a long time ago.
Yeah.
The wall's
Had
always.
that to do with it.
I remember it was a FEMA issue when we had that big flood that went through, and the wall's always kind of been there. And
Somebody keeps saying that it's okay, but you got other stuff to read.
yeah, it's just.
Well, that's what we went over when he was here. He said it was good to go, and it would be good to go for quite some time. That would be something way down the
And they
road.
keep talking about a maintenance program. I've never seen anything in the budget on a maintenance program on the Riverwall. So, if we have a maintenance program, I'm kind of curious to know what that maintenance program is, as the engineer suggests that we should have.
Right.
So if we're doing a maintenance program and it's being visually inspected and everyone feels good, then that's a different story.
Right.
But
Let's get him back in here and.
so I found that to be read it after the fact. And my only other thing I wanted to bring up quickly was the Centralia parking lot. I don't know when the plan is to do the parking lot and what it is, but it makes no sense to even think about digging one scrap of blacktop out of there until the YMCA and the North Point apartment's done. Why put a new blacktop surface down and then have construction all the way around?
Yeah,
it?
that doesn't make sense.
Is that under Lowell Center? Where
It's under street construction and the Public Works Construction Fund. Public Works.
To do the Centralia parking lot. Obviously it needs it. I've seen it and I've been there. I don't know. I was through there recently, and I think didn't they just recently patch it too? And it looks like, but yeah, it's in tough shape. But
I was just there a couple of weeks ago.
But I don't think that it should even be considered done until all the other stuff is done down there.
what you're saying is not cutting it, but earmarking the money for a special fund until everything is done, so that it doesn't get damaged.
Just scheduling wise.
Yeah, because I don't know when all that's gonna. It may not even be done for a year. So
And actually, yeah, what happens then?
yeah, you just hold off on funding until the next.
I can answer that.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the project that's funded out of the Centralia Center Replacement Reserves and Centralia
so the
Center
money
Fund.
just sits there.
So it wouldn't be transferred out of there until the actual end cost. And then we transfer it to the Public Works to fund whatever the cost.
So it's just.
Yeah,
just
so
sits
it's
there.
already in a designated account and it won't get taken out of there until the actual project is
But it
done.
definitely needs to be done, but I just want to make sure we do it at the right time.
So tell Public Works not to do it.
But it's not a budgeting deficit? It doesn't go against the tax levy, is what you're saying?
Correct. Well, that's that 25,000 that we put annually away each year in the Centralia Center budget for for projects over at the Centralia Center. So those funds have accumulated over time, and that's what's being used to fund that
So
project.
it'll just continue to accumulate.
So as of
we
right
need to
now,
use it.
like, well, they said that there might be a problem with the roof.
Mhm.
So if the roof
Yeah,
happens, then the
that's what I
parking lot doesn't
want to bring
happen.
up.
It depends on what the size and scope of that roof problem is.
Yeah, that's
We're not aware of the roof. Someone just made a comment, small comment of it.
Which kind of, no, I've latched onto too.
Right, so I don't know what
What's the
the,
floor?
It
Like
has.
over the years.
No.
Yeah, so,
I'm just sick of the misinformation.
yeah, that's the other thing is just making sure that I don't want to get into a budget year and all of a sudden we have a roof next year now to do over there.
Yeah.
Well, that roof has
Well-
been a pain on there forever. so-
Yeah, so I think we need to make sure, yeah, I don't know if they're looking at the roof and what's going on there.
well, if you want, I can talk to
Matt or.
Matt and have them email you too.
Yeah, just kind of, I just want to feel comfortable that we don't have a roof all of a sudden next
So
year.
yeah, we don't want to put a parking lot in for something that doesn't have a roof.
Right.
Yeah, you're gonna have a PowerPoint presentation.
But yeah, that was my other concern too, is, but the parking lot needs to obviously be done, but let's wait till all the construction is done.
When is that projected to be? Is it next year?
Oh,
Does anyone remember?
Have you heard when the Y is gonna?
I don't know.
It's gonna take a while, I
Yeah,
bet.
it's supposed to be like
It's
next
potentially 2020.
Yeah, it's gonna say a year, so it
Yeah,
would make
but
sense to
that's
do
good.
it this next year.
And I don't know what North Point is.
They're working on it. Yeah, Myers already in there and everything.
I thought it was fall 2019, but maybe it got pushed
Well, and it
back.
could be, but I mean, things get delayed, and
Right,
then how
yeah,
late in the year
construction.
can you do asphalt? I don't know, but
But yeah, it just seems to make sense when everything's done.
Company's done.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
they shut down their asphalt plants
Yeah.
at some point.
Yeah. Well, so it doesn't make sense if
hopefully they'll finish high. It's just about done.
that
Well, American does that.
Okay.
Because we can't utilize the
county
county,
anymore. Oh,
state law.
state law changed.
Is that nice?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a
And
lot.
you know what happened to our asphalt prices when that
Yeah,
law went through?
it's supposed to create competition.
Let me guess.
Yeah.
No, because asphalt's the only game in town.
Exactly.
So ours astronomically went through the roof because we used to utilize the county since that was competition. for
Yeah,
us,
right. Yeah.
And now you can't. It's just, it's
Mhm.
amazing. Yeah.
So it's paying a lot more, doing a lot less asphalt. So yeah, that was my other thing too, is the concern on the roof. Just that off the cuff comment, just kind of has been sitting with me. That I think we really need to figure that one out. The wall, the parking lot, and the roof.
I think we hit it nail on the head there.
Mhm.
All right. Well, should we do finance?
Sure.
All
Right,
right.
head out, guys.
All right.
Depending on what's going on at home, I'll try to call in.
Well, we're.
The what?
How long is it? I gotta pick up
I
at 8.
don't know the number either. Turn on live.
All right. Yeah. Well, then I can't say anything. No.
Good.
Last questions.
All right, guys.
All right, finance.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right, remember,
I couldn't figure out how to carry.
Sure.
How to carry it.
you don't have crutches anymore. You can figure out.
No, I'm on two wheels.
Wages and benefits, the reduction in wages is that, in lieu of the deputy tax collector, you know, remember when ambulance service got
Oh yeah.
contracted out, Diane's position got kind of reduced as administrative assistant at the fire, and then we're also gonna be utilizing her for tax collection, so we were able to
That's 13.
Eliminate that out.
eliminate that. It resulted in some savings on the budget side there. For the most part, software support contract, that's the amount that for now the new Munis software, but also we're gonna have some overlap with our existing system.
Because you're on a dual system, don't you?
Right, but like some of the cost system, we're not gonna be implementing fully till 2020 and the basic on this timeline. So our highway costing and our existing software, we'll have to continue to use that for a period of
Oh.
time. So we'll have about a year and a half of overlap before we can totally eliminate our current system and thing. And that's if everything goes the way it should go. So yeah, it's the other thing down here. You see continuing disclosure. Previously, that's not an increase in the overall budget, just in my budget, because previously it was budgeted a debt service fund, so that just got moved out of there and into the finance department budget. Banking fees is a new one. Last year, for many years, we didn't have any banking fees, and now they've imposed banking fees on us. So at some point down the road, we'll probably do an RFP for banking services and see if we can get those reduced
So all
through some
the
competition.
millions of dollars that we put into banks, now we're getting charged fees
Yeah.
as they're making money off our money.
Yeah, well, I try to keep as little there as possible and try to keep as much of it invested and try to just keep a very thin cash flow so that we're earning
versus
investment income, like the LJIP, which we can transfer back and forth. So I try to do as much as possible, keep it as little as possible in the bank where there's not a lot of interest income and try to maximize that.
That's $5,500.
Right, so. Other than that, pretty much the standard office supplies and postage. We were able to reduce over time because we're taking some proactive approaches on a lot of the late notices and things like that, where it used to be where they were sent out for property taxes. Late notices are sent out every month. Now we just send them out after the installment date. So instead of February, March, April, May, June, July, we send them out after the January installment, after the April installment, and then the July. It doesn't, if they get one delinquent, they're delinquent. It doesn't pay to send them a month later the same notice. And
I like your reminder letters that you don't do. I like your reminder letters that you don't do anymore.
We try to.
I gotta set alarms now.
Well, the website. We also put it in the paper. We also do it on the radio, so we try to, get out there that when the installments are due. So, and plus the insert that we send out, notifying of all the due dates.
I like the personalized letters.
So, other than that, pretty much, not much else I can say unless you have specific questions on some items.
Yours is pretty straightforward.
This is a little bit side topic, but I just kind of thought about it. I was gone, I think the one finance meeting when the auditors came in. Do we have a final copy of the audit report yet or no?
I sent it to all the older persons, PDF,
Okay.
so.
I know I didn't get a hard copy. I apologize.
Do you want a hard copy?
I don't need one. If we did get one via email, I'll just check my email.
Yeah, it should be. I'll verify them.
Otherwise, if you got an opportunity, if it doesn't take too long, just send me another one because I might have to try and troll through everything here.
How about I just do it right this minute?
Awesome.
I know exactly where that is.
What's our total outstanding debt? Is it this?
Oh, sorry.
Let me see if you can multitask. 13 million? No.
No, just, there we go.
So, Tim, your cost allocations,
Correct. Okay. Yes.
is that new?
No. I mean, what we do, part of administratively, we allocate some of those costs to other, like wastewater, for example, because that's funded by a utility fee. So what we like to do is, reflect those, because if the sewer utility was at operator loan, they would still have to, pay for all the administration. So we allocate a portion to that. The increase there is that previously a portion of the finance department was built into the self-insured health insurance premiums, because basically I had to manage the whole thing, and then so now that we go fully insured, I have less, I don't have to do a lot of the day-to-day claims processing or looking at that stuff. So then that was taken out, and so now those are reflected back into the finance budget.
Where does that reflect?
What?
What was taken out of the self-insured?
Cost allocations that increased there, just under workers' comp there.
Oh, okay.
Right there, so that's. Did you get it?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You guys want to look at any other ones? Start at airport and work our way down, or?
No, that's way too small for me to try to read off here.
Why? I was just wondering.
I'm sharing with Shane.
I noticed you didn't have a Chromebook.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that until I moved over here.
Oh.
Do we want to do airport? Do we want to do any other ones? Or okay. Or
Does
kind of
anyone-
just high level, and if you have questions on some.
Can anyone speak to airport budget?
I'm not real intimate with the airport budget.
Oh, that's true. It's not interdepartment of the city one.
Yeah, the commission's one. I don't know if they've approved that yet or not.
So we don't have any real say over the airport budget, right? We just make a contribution to it.
Yeah, our say is the levy amount.
The levy amount.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of a tricky one because it's based on a pro rata basis
Right.
of all the other departments. So it's
Right.
like if one municipality reduces
Yeah,
it,
we don't
then
wanna-
it's like, you know, it
People might start-
is a tricky budget, but not saying that it can't be brought up as a concern and take it back to the commission and stuff like that. But
I agree.
obviously, you know, but we fund 60% of it. I mean, we're the major, you know, so.
They're doing great things out there.
Yeah, I mean, you can see in just the fuel sales and things like that, you know, things are.
Definitely moving in a good direction out there.
So, I'll ask you, do you remember that information I asked you to get about the debt service?
Yes.
So, just looking at it, I have a couple questions. So in 2000,
You're looking at the debt service on the budget, or? You're looking
yeah,
at-
just
you mean-
kind of just curious where we're at.
Okay. Yep, I am too.
So, since you're here, our total debt obligation is $23 million, is that correct? That's an outstanding balance?
Oh, I'm sorry, projected for, yeah, assuming what's in the budget now, the 5.3 million, which goes to fund those projects I talked about earlier, our total outstanding general obligation debt would be 23,923,000.
So what do we pay our principal payments? What is our total payments that we make on an annual basis?
Well, you see right there, principal payments. So,
Yeah, 2 million.
so for 2019, we'll make principal payments of 2.1 million, interest of 514,000.
So 1.5, you would say, 1.6 million is what we would basically pay?
2.6.
2.1. It'd be.
Oh, that's in addition to?
Right, principal and interest to
Yeah.
give you 2.6.
Principal and interest in addition to?
Yep. Yeah. So our principal and interest for general obligation debt next year would be 2,665,000.
If we would borrow 5 million. 5.
Well,
Oh, no,
the
that's
first
right.
year you don't make a payment on
No, that's right, yeah.
the
Are we gonna have anything falling off? Are we someone come to maturity, or are we just adding 2?
No, we actually don't have anything coming fully paid off next year because there was a gap in there. But of that 23.9 million,
Well, yeah, because
5.5 million of that is the water and light. They back in 2009 they issued electric revenue bonds
I
for
remember that.
upgrades,
Mhm.
and then in 2015, when the rates were low, they were able to take care of an opportunity of low interest rates is where the city issued GO debt to refinance those bonds, and then they reimburse us for
They make a
that. So
payment.
it's not on the levy or anything like that. So we have to, So if we wouldn't have done that, then obviously we would be $5.5 million less than the 23.
So what about the wastewater plant? Is that?
That's revenue debt also, so that's supported strictly by the sewer use fee and, rehab outstanding. At the end of 2019, for the one we issued in 2008, well, $15.3 million left on that first one, and then we'll have the full principal amount, assuming we draw down the full amount on the one we issued this year of $7 million, for a total of.
Well, we got the new plant almost half paid off then.
Yeah, it's.
So realistically, on the tax levy, we have how much outstanding debt?
How much GO debt do we got?
Oh, that's supported by the tax levy?
Yeah.
Or.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, less the water and light.
Yeah, less water and light and less.
Maybe 18.3 million.
And that doesn't include wastewater either, 'cause that's
Correct,
separate.
yeah, right.
Okay. You said 17 million?
18.388, so 18.4 million round up.
So just to be clear, the 2.6 annual is out of the tax levy?
Minus.
No, it's 2.6, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we spend $2.6 million every year on debt.
Doesn't Water and Light pay one of those
Yeah,
payments?
right. So 495,000 of that is debt. You have funding sources from your TIF districts to partially offset that. Some of the Centralia Center lease revenue goes to offset that. So our debt service levy is about 1.3, 1.4 million.
Oh, yeah, we got another.
It's hard to balance the budget.
1,350,000 is basically what's on the tax levy for debt payment.
If we never spent another dollar, how much would that be on the levy?
We never
If we never borrowed another dollar?
Oh,
All paid off.
Yeah.
let's see. So I have my maturity. I think, well, we got the bonds, which go out to 2037 for the issue last year. 2029 for Water and Light, but that obviously does not affect us. So you have maturities going from 2021 through 2037.
So for the next 20 years, our debt levy is $1.3 million.
Well, no, it'll change depending on how much you borrow, so that as you pay off, assuming you borrowed nothing else, obviously that would start to drop off, because as you pay off one obligation, you know, it would come down.
So in a couple of years, we're gonna have some drop off.
If you didn't borrow,
Right.
Anymore.
Which I still agree that borrowing for capital improvement projects like roads and stuff is worthwhile borrowing.
Right, I mean,
because it's way all last.
Well, I mean, kind of built into the budget is that, you know, I talked earlier, that $1 to $1.5 million for street construction.
Right.
Yeah,
So-
there is an argument for borrowing, you know, and that's that if a road is gonna last 40 years, why make Grandma Jones pay for that whole road today when 10 years from now someone might move, other people might move to the community, make them pay a portion of that,
Right.
and that's where kind of spreading the debt over, you know, and so what is our debt ratio? That's the kind of big number as far as the state is concerned, right?
Right. Yeah, they call that the intergenerational equity principle, where that infrastructure, where, you know, assets have a long life, and those that benefit from that asset pay for it as opposed to one point in time.
Right.
But to answer your question, projected based on what's in the budget right now, our percent of would be 45%, 45.5% to be precise.
Is that a good number, or depends on how comfortable you're with at your debt ratio, or?
Right, you know, obviously, you know, you look across, you know, we get this report that shows different municipalities. I mean, we're debt for our size, our debt, outstanding debt and ratios is one of the lowest for cities from 17.5 to 30,000. So it all depends on, you know, what projects you're doing, what initiatives you're undertaking, but I can actually have that.
That's interesting.
Do you have any debt schedules, or like a condensed debt schedule?
thought
Probably
there was
something that
something.
you don't necessarily need to advertise, like on the website type
I
of
saw it
thing.
somewhere where you gave us something that had maturity dates and.
Yeah, what I usually do is like, you know, kind of after, you know, I do a debt projection based on that. And so once we kind of finalize the debt in this, I usually do a debt projection where I kind of lay out, you know, here's our everything going forward. And I even build in assumptions if you were to borrow at this rate going forward for like our street, this is what it would be.
Yeah, I think he gave us something too already this year.
And maybe I was wrong at that time, maybe that was at the time of the audit report, but I want to say that last year when Allers was redoing the TIF, that they had that projection in there, like a Microsoft Excel document.
Yeah, I can get you, whatever information you want.
Yeah, it shows where all those drop offs are.
Yeah, if you were to borrow nothing else, yeah, that's an easy. I have a spreadsheet where I can usually generate that if you'd like.
Cool. No, yeah. I mean, whatever's convenient if you're able to send that.
Do you have thoughts, Lee? We're just curious.
I just want to make it public.
Oh, yeah.
Because
I know you had some idea or something.
Well, I have lots of ideas. we don't have the rest of the evening.
We got till 11.
Yeah, we got till 11.
Talking about the municipal court budget. Oh, Mr. Chair. Just doing a quick overview. So, municipal court, we have an assistant city attorney. Can anybody explain this assistant city attorney?
Assistant city attorney.
Yeah, it's assistant city attorney that is basically that handles all the municipal court activity for the city. Prosecutor, basically.
So is there any reason that our attorney can't do that?
You would have to ask our city attorney.
I was just curious because the city of Stevens Point doesn't have an assistant city attorney.
Right, they just have the attorney.
They just have the attorney. And why is the municipal smaller than Stevens Point have an assistant?
I want to say we did, that our Sue covered this or said why last budget, I thought. But we
weren't here.
Yeah, you went to bed. Okay.
We've always had, when we had a part-time city attorney, we've always had an assistant city attorney too for that. It's just something, that's how the system was set up. But yeah, I knew Stevens Point only had one.
I'm just trying to understand why we have two.
Should we put the
another
municipal
50,000, 45,000?
Should we put that on another agenda as well?
Or just curious as to what?
Well, I mean, I guess I don't understand it, so.
Okay.
So you put it on the referral.
Which is yeah, we don't have one. We handle things right as they come up.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, usually after our meeting's concluded, that's all the referrals I say. So I mean, very rarely do I get.
Which agenda do you think, I guess, is less encumbered? The 6th or the 13th?
Yeah, do we have anything really for regular agenda items?
Oh, yeah, we can, for next meeting, we'll have.
Is there the mass transit?
Mass transit. I think we have a liquor license renewal. We have the taxi cab renewal for the taxi cab license renewal.
Oh, yep. Yeah, for the actual companies.
We have community theater.
Community theater?
Lease.
Oh.
I'm sorry. Centralia Center Community Theater lease.
So we've got some resolution on the lease?
I think so.
Oh.
It's taken 11 months, but we got it.
We got it. I'm not sure if there's, I mean, we could.
I bet it's golden in government.
I'm trying to think if there's anything.
Well, that might be a meeting she might be at anyway, so.
Right, yeah, we could.
That'd probably be a good one to tack that on.
Okay, I'll talk to her tomorrow and let her know. Let's see, I'm just trying to go into my finance agenda thing here.
I don't think speculating is going to really give us any.
Yeah, as far as I know, those are the only items, so we will be able to take up some budget business, because I don't think that the mass transit's gonna take a lot of time. I think you got all the evaluation now, it's just a matter of.
Pretty much done.
Yeah, it's just a matter of taking formal action, so I don't think that'll take long, and then community theater. I don't think. So.
We did our readings.
Okay. So if you want, but maybe with the Riverwall report, because I know that Public Works follows finance, that
yeah, why don't we?
That maybe they'll be here anyway, so we could have them.
We could do that.
We'll be here
On the 6th,
yeah,
so
since we're here.
I know they'll be waiting out in the hall for us, so.
Well, that's the other thing is we have to consider at that meeting is that we can't do a lot of budget stuff because we really only kind of have an hour-ish.
Yeah.
Right.
Mr. Chairperson.
Well, what's the odds of?
We start at 4:30.
Is there any way you can start early, Shane, you think? Or?
On Tuesday? I should be able to.
4 or 4:30. I can be here whenever, but if I'm
Jake
the only
can't.
one here, we can't have a meeting. I
Jake
know,
can't.
right? I know.
Oh, we have water and light budget. I'm sorry, that's the other one that we have on the
Or
sixth.
maybe Public Works could go at 4.
We should do water. Oh, we're doing that at public or at finance meeting.
The review of the water and light budget, yeah.
Okay.
And then you all received a copy of that.
Yeah.
So just make sure that.
What is the actual policy of allowing someone else to sit in your?
You can ask.
But,
Yeah.
So like if I'm not gonna be here, I can say, hey, Thad, can you sit in for me?
and that's the only way that it can happen.
Yeah.
So that, we've been doing it though, where if someone couldn't make it, most of the times the committee wasn't really notified. It just seems member city staff was called or sent
No, there was
emails.
something, I thought that Sue said
But
that
Sue-
there had to be a
Sue-
certain procedure, and I
Yeah,
forgot
we
what
had
that
to-
was.
We had to appoint someone.
But that changed how we have an ordinance on it, but there was an issue, I guess, all of a sudden, because it's not the way we had been doing it.
But technically, if somebody's not here, it doesn't mean anything because we still have 2.
Right.
So the quorum still happens. And if something's tied, it goes to council as a tie, and you just, because it's really, we're just making a recommendation.
Right. But I guess to answer your question, there's an ordinance that says the person has to seek a fill-in. The person who's gone has to seek a fill-in to be approved by the committee chair, so.
So I can verify with Sue tomorrow what that
Okay.
exactly, and then I'll email you guys. And so if you want to do that for the 6th or whatever, then we can do it so that.
Yeah, it'd be up to, it would be up to, Jake.
I
Sorry.
guess.
Yeah.
State Farm. So there's only 2 more finance committee meetings,
Mm-hmm.
and you still have wastewater and water light.
Yep.
Water and Light comes
The 6th.
Next
the
Yep.
6th, yeah.
Oh, you're gonna do it the 6th during the regular.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's what they do. They come to a meeting and
Mhm.
they
And
give
you
it,
can do,
but we do have their budget.
yep, I've emailed
So
all the
we do
alderpersons,
have
so
it,
you
so
should have it.
at least we can.
Because the
That's
commission
what it-
approved it last Friday.
So legally, what?
It doesn't preclude us from having a finance meeting on the 8th either. I mean, that Thursday, so it's up to you guys. I mean, I love these things, so, you know.
Anything to stay away from family.
So, I mean, it's not like we're just committed to Tuesday. If you feel like you want another meeting in there to kind of go through some of the other things,
Yeah,
you know,
we can meet other days.
we can meet other days too, so.
Yeah, and we could take an overview on some of the smaller budgets and not really need anybody here unless we have.
Yeah, I mean,
specific-
really, I mean, or if you're reviewing them at home with the
Right.
board and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
that's-
So like I said, if you have questions, email me, or you can even email the department head for somebody, you know, that's saying, I just want to know what this is, and then based on the response, you can say, well, maybe we need to talk to you, or maybe, okay, good, I understand. You know?
Yeah, because like today I reviewed what we're gonna do tonight and just kind of looked over some.
Yeah, so it's
But-
perfectly fine. I mean, it's.
Which version?
This version,
Okay.
the email version. Question I hate to, but and maybe you know, and maybe it's a question to pursue is what's our legal, when it comes to the water and light budget? I just kind of never knew. Is it we ceremonially adopting it, or is it something that we actually have a say in?
Sue will correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, and maybe, but I was under the impression that
That's our time to make changes.
Finance
if we want to.
can make. I mean, that's otherwise. Why would they send it to your approval? I mean, it's,
Right.
I mean, so.
Guess that's the one time we can make changes to the water and light.
Right. So I mean, that was my understanding when we kind of had some issues years ago with kind of the projects mismatching. But you know, I can verify with Sue on that too. But I'm pretty sure that
Scott and we have 2 members on
Jake,
Jake.
I think.
Jake, okay. I wonder if they would. They might not have.
I don't think they've been going, or Jake.
Scott,
They meet it
he
during
was
the day.
going, I don't know if he still is, I think.
I don't blame Jake if he wasn't. The meeting times are
In the afternoon on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Then you really don't,
It's kind of
you're
like
just
HR.
observer.
Can never make them.
I can't even.
Just completely pointless.
What is the next
Well,
one?
you can avoid discussion by having it those.
So they change.
So maybe Tim, you know, with the Heart of Wisconsin at 25,000, is for economic development. I read there, is there, like I said, I struggled when we were talking with Adam that we have so many different streams for economic development. That what specifically is considered economic development through the Heart of Wisconsin? Or is that the question for them?
That's a question that I know Adam does sometimes go to their meetings, so,
Okay.
you know.
I just like, I learn at least, you know. 'cause
I mean, they have a list of activities that they,
Yep.
you know, it's, you know.
So,
But how is it economic?
I talked to Krista Kuhn after a facade committee meeting one day, for about probably half hour or so. I guess I'd recommend talking to her. She'll give you a tour of the building. And
I've been there and I talked to her, but
Yeah.
it's just, you know, as we're trying to find funds.
We gotta change the name of the Heart of Wisconsin anyway, so. I've been getting a lot of complaints about people trying to get a hold of the
Chamber of Commerce,
at Wisconsin Rapids.
Yeah, and that's,
Oh, they don't know it's the.
They don't know it's the Heart of Wisconsin.
it should be Heart of Wisconsin, Chamber of Wisconsin, something.
Wisconsin Rapids.
Well, it was called the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, for years.
Before.
When they switched it.
But I just, field some calls about they can't get a hold of anything in Rapids because they don't know where to get a hold of.
And that would definitely be, because the Heart of Wisconsin has their own board and
And I think
operates
the
their own.
CVB, I don't think says Wisconsin Rapids, does it? No, I think that does.
Yeah, I think Wisconsin Rapids is
Rapids
convention bureau,
Visitors
yeah.
and Convention Bureau.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of, I've had, when I was a clerk, I've had
WRCBA,
Wisconsin Rapids area visitors. and
actually
Right.
forward those concerns. So I don't know, is it, it's not 11 o'clock yet, but.
So we'll put the water and
Well, we
light,
still have
we'll put the water and light budget on Tuesday.
No.
I'll put wastewater on there if we get to it. We can, if not, we can obviously have it on either the 8th or because like I said, Joe will be here, the two Joes will be here, so.
Well, I'm assuming Ryan will have to be here for that.
And he might be.
Yeah, we got the information technology, that's always usually an interesting one with lots of money. IT.
Well, that's gonna be a referral for HR is taking the oversight away from River City's community access or whatever it's called now.
But even just information technology, because,
By how much is that? Where,
you know, it's not,
maybe that's a place.
it's 400,000, but
What's the percentage on the top of that?
what are you looking at?
For the
Percent
director.
change, 10,000?
No.
Oh, no, for the
Yeah,
director,
Yeah. Well, it's
it's 1, but it really shouldn't be 1.
It should be 0.85.
0.85, yeah.
Yeah, it should be.
Good job, Mr. Chair.
No,
So, yeah, is there any major project coming up? I guess the other thing I'm wondering about is, do we find ability to find space to house body camera stuff?
Yeah, I got a quote for those, so.
Of the body
Was
cameras?
that something that we were gonna be able to take out of the reserves for this year or the budget?
Or the carryover, it was gonna be,
What we're gonna do is see where we're at at year end, and then see if we can find some funds there or make a
Leftovers.
decision. So when we do that transfer resolution or appropriation carryover resolution, that's when we were gonna address that priority. So I've got a quote from the fire chief on those, so,
police chief.
or did I say fire chief?
Yeah, I think you did.
Okay, sorry, police chief.
And then,
Can we pretend it's 11 o'clock?
So it will be part of that analysis at year end.
Well, you can leave whatever.
So if we don't have enough at year end, we're just gonna save that money or half that money, whatever the amount comes to, and then transfer money during the resolution time, but from where? General obligation or the
No.
general fund?
Well, depending on what we get, but we'll see where, so once we get to year end. I mean, you could put it in the budget right now and take it out of reserve, that's fine. I mean,
No, I'm just asking, where would you pull it from if we don't put it in the budget? Still the general fund?
well, what I do is you look at our financial operations at the end of the year, and if we have a surplus, then we can utilize that surplus to fund those body cams. But until we close the books and know exactly where we are, then we can make those decisions to
Okay.
fund those priorities, so.
No, that's what I was wondering.
So when we have that, because it's usually like in April, I think we have that carryover resolution, and that's where we'll look at all our surplus funds, maybe I make that resolution to carry those forward, and then you approve appropriating it for its intended use, so. So all those that, they don't get carried over or taken out of contingency without council approval.
do we haven't met with the library. Anything big there? That's a big budget.
Didn't they come in last year? I thought they did.
I don't know, I don't think so.
I know they kind of came in lately about, there was that, project, the restroom project, that needs.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Right.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
The restroom. Yeah, because they need that improvement. Alright. I'll give Shane a few minutes.
So
Otherwise-
I'll put the water light budget, but then I'll just put budget review. So if we want to, that'll kind of leave it more flexibility.
okay.
We don't have to line item exactly what budget we're looking at, but we'll just
Sure.
And I'll talk to Joe Terry about if he wants to take under sewer or sewer utility budget at that time, and that so that way we can do water light and followed by sewer utility, depending on what the time is. But what time do you guys want to start?
So,
Well, I guess it's up to Shane if he's willing to.
I'll do
stay a
whatever
little
you
earlier.
want, Joe.
I mean, if you can make a 4 o'clock work.
Don't upset the chairman.
Oh, come on. I'm more than flexible. 4, I think, would be
They're
good.
really pushing that for
Oh yeah, he's.
I'm.
4:30.
It doesn't matter to me at all. I'm just trying to
I
think,
know,
think
I
about
do.
city staff and getting people here. I mean, I'll start at 8.
In the morning?
At night, morning, night, whatever, 3 o'clock.
On the library budget, I don't know, I see there, I noticed that there was an emergency generator. Is the library designated as like a shelter that needs to have an emergency generator, or?
That's a good question.
Keeping coffee pots running if the power goes out.
sinkholes.
That's $50,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of a good question.
That's why I kind of stuck out. What's that?
Oh,
Library, $50,000 generator, emergency generator.
Where's
Right.
the library?
McMillan, sorry.
Look on page 62. That's on, is there, so are they, and we already bought them, so they're not gonna obtain any cost savings by not.
Well, and that was part of it, that they got his original was 50,000, and then when we went through budget discussions and things like that, they were able to get a better quote or something he lowered it to 35, but obviously that was after this, so it's at 35 actually.
I just trying to figure out why his library need an emergency generator.
It's good point.
Maybe it could be turned into an emergency triage location.
I don't know if it is designated as a shelter already, but just trying to figure out what the point is. And did Park and Rec or somebody go through the generator and say it needs to be replaced, or are we replacing because it's old?
Or is it new?
Yeah, it just says it's failing.
It's failing.
Oh.
But who's made that determination that it's failing?
People that work on it all the time.
I would hope.
So.
But I don't know. That just caught my eye in the library budget.
Who knows, maybe there's some obscure state law that requires, if it's a public building.
Well, that's kind of what I was wondering, if the system would have required it for the solar panels, but they would have did that upgrade then.
Right, you would have thought that would have been all.
And that would be batteries.
Right.
That's the only way you can store solar.
Yep.
Yeah.
So.
Is the Lowell Center totally funded out of the levy?
Lowell Center?
Lowell Center.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no special revenue for that, is there?
No.
Yeah, that's I guess the conferences was my only big thing, out of state conferences.
Well, that's another thing for HR, yeah. I'll send that to him.
Yeah, I see the mayor has a U.S. conference for mayors. That's out of state.
That's gone.
I just think any out-of-state conference just doesn't seem to make sense to me.
Yeah, unless it's a working like a training conference.
Unless you're, yeah, they're going to a trainee, but we don't want to call a conference a training. I'm just kind of curious to see how many conferences there are out there.
I went to one that was called a conference. It was 12 hours of training, dog training every day.
So wastewater.
Semantics, I guess.
You know, wastewater you meet with, obviously water and light, any other departments that you would like to, that you know of right now that you want to have come in?
Well,
Municipal court, Lee was talking about, I don't know if that's.
yeah, Sue could probably cover that.
Yeah, I got the muni court, yeah.
And then the library, I mean, it'd be nice if someone was here, we could just ask about the generator.
Sure.
Yeah, who determined that it's failed, you know? 'Cause did they have some?
Yeah, because obviously no one here can.
And I see, and I had a question on human resources, because there was a part-time position that went to full-time.
Yeah, that was,
What?
A part-time position that went to full-time.
That'd be the administrative assist, or
HR assistant.
HR assistant. Are retired?
So we have a generalist, a coordinator, an assistant, and a director up there. So we have less employee,
No,
I take that back,
Yeah,
a coordinator.
there's 3.
So we have 3 people out there as our employees are shrinking.
Where is that?
HR. 46.
Well, I was actually gonna comment on that when Kat Noss said something about why it's hard to get and retain people. Well, we pull benefits away from people.
Yeah, that was easy.
That's not even a question.
But yeah,
Let's
that's,
just keep taking away from health insurance and keep taking away. I mean, how much have we honestly taken away from health insurance in the last 5 years from public employees?
I don't know.
Like, it was fully funded, and then it was partially funded, and now
It was never fully funded. It was,
I've always paid a
as far as the employer contribution.
employee contribution.
Ever since I've been here, that would be back, I started in,
Sworn in in 90.
oh my God, I don't know.
You said 94.
94, that's sad.
boy,
I was 14.
From 94 to 2014, it was 90% employer contribution. And then from 2014 to 2017, it was 95%.
And that was because of the health incentive.
Yeah, the wellness.
So I thought it was 90.
So it's always been 90%.
They
It's
gave
just
the
that
incentive.
with the wellness program, there was a incentive that you could get it to 95, but it's always theoretically 90%. It's just that the incentive was there from 2014-17 that you could go to 95. So
I always thought it because I remember when I started it was 90-10.
yeah, it's.
And I stopped taking. But yeah, so we went. Why did we have increased work? Do you know, to go full time now to the assistant, or?
You'd have to ask
I was gonna say you don't know. I just because did the wage change then? Was it bumped up or?
Actually, well, that one
Why
it was
is it-
actually the previous person was actually at a step
Way too
11.
high? Yeah,
And
that's
this
right.
person's starting out at a step 1, 2, so
It's where they're supposed to be at.
I think actually
It's gone down.
the wages might be actually less because of that. I'd have to verify.
So you get to go full time with less wages.
Well, that's
It's not a
because
big deal.
yeah,
No,
it's
no,
the same
not-
grade. It's
right.
just that our policy is you can only go up to step 6. But when we implemented the DMG, if your grade came in and
You didn't get moved back.
you didn't get moved back, they didn't penalize anyone, so that's why certain people are like at a step 11 and stay there. But then when the position's replaced, then it's at the evaluated wage.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I saw, and I guess that would be for her, but we have 7,500 in here for labor attorney, which is quite a bit more. And I know our city attorney does a lot of attorney work for negotiations. I'm just wondering why it went up so much.
Or why we had the city attorney doing the contract negotiations if we're paying a labor attorney.
Right, because the HR director, I would think, would do it, and then there's a problem, then we have a labor attorney to do.
Yeah, I mean, right now we don't utilize the labor attorney for negotiations.
But we bumped it to
I
7,500.
mean, it could be that you would utilize that if you went to mediation or arbitration with the police and fire contracts.
So that huge increase, are we anticipating?
A lot of times they use that if there's disciplinary type matters or, to seek legal advice.
Yeah, I just-
So we're anticipating now.
I was gonna say, are we anticipating?
What's the?
I know you can't speak to it, but the fit.
The FIT program. Okay, that's where we have an on-site that comes in.
Oh, yeah.
I think they're housed actually right over here. They come in and do physical
Case
therapy
yeah,
for
so that
employees that have issues and things like that. That was initiated a couple of years ago.
I'd be curious.
Previously, that was funded through the health insurance.
So now we're funding it.
Right,
through
because
the
now that
tax
we're
levy?
fully insured, that has to come out of that fund in there, but and they do job, what do they call it, job evaluations, risk, like that, so they help out with workers' comp and return to work whenever possible and things like that. So.
I'd really like to discuss, I'm interested in the value of that program.
There was a contractor that I worked for that had something similar to this, and a guy in a van would come up to the job site, would flex him up.
Chris Farley.
I don't know of anybody that utilized his services, but he'd just hang out for an hour.
Yeah,
Well,
they have office hours here.
Yeah. I was here earlier today and I saw that, and I'm just kind of curious to see. I didn't realize that we'll be paying $66,500 for it.
Yeah, I think that was. Remember? I'm sorry.
No, is there a rate of return? I think
That's what I wondered.
Yeah, and I think the HR committee took this up back in July, maybe, that contract. So they might, there's probably some.
Don't look at me. I'm trying to remember.
Going over the levels of service, because that's when, so.
Okay, it's just a big number.
Yeah, I mean, the difficult part with those things, it's hard to quantify the return.
Right.
Just like wellness, it's hard to quantify because there isn't, it's.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there are employees that utilize the physical therapy portion of it, so.
Is that because, and you don't know, so I won't ask, but is that because their insurance doesn't cover it, or is there a cost savings there's not a cost savings plan by having it?
Well, sometimes it goes to, your whole health insurance experience, claims, that if someone has a problem, instead of going to the doctor, they come here, they avoid a doctor's visit,
this isn't something that they're signed, okay.
They can give some basic physical therapy too, so they don't have to go to a doctor and then a therapist, and theoretically, hopefully it helps our claims experience, and that's part of the premise behind it.
But like if you get a strained muscle, instead of
go to the doctor,
visit, that's fine, just ice it for 5 days and take it. So,
but yeah, you're talking $66,500 for somebody that's here how many hours a week? It's not full time. It's not 40 hours a week. It's not.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's just all physical. There's other things
absolutely.
that I know they were doing some very good working with their job descriptions and return to work things like looking at a job and saying what are the physical demands of that job, so that when that employee goes to the doctor has a better feel for what the physical demands of the job and what they can and cannot.
And I guess when you're recruiting too,
for return to work, and that helps with your workers' comp mod, which has actually increased this year from 0.95 to 1.08.
So
and just that increase there,
last year?
Huh?
The FIT program wasn't successful last year.
Workers' comp is, but when you look at your mod factor, that jump from 0.95 to 1.08 cost the city an additional $47,000
potentially for the next 3 years too.
Right, because it takes a while for that to drop off. So
get caught back up.
So hopefully that trend starts to reverse and go back down, because we've had really good experience with our workers' comp, but just over the past couple of years, it's gone from 0.85 to 1.08 over a 2-year period. So
okay, that's just something that stuck out. It's a big number. You guys have any other specific questions?
Well, if we're gonna look at meeting the 6th, the 13th, and then you think there's gonna be another day
It's up to you. I didn't, you know, it's only at the discretion of the, I mean, the 13th, I mean, depending on, we have the 6th, you have the 13th, you can have another meeting that week also, or you could have it, you know, depending, it's all what, you know, what you guys, you know, feel comfortable with or want to do, so.
Alright, well, I guess I'll stay with the 6th and 13th for now.
Okay. So 4 o'clock on.
Yeah, is that good with you, Shane?
Whatever works in your schedule. I'm here, fulfilling the pleasure of the chairman.
Next week Tuesday, I'm wide open.
Yeah, we don't want to make you wait in the hall too long.
Yeah, we want to.
I feel bad.
We got work though, so that's why.
The 6th is election day, so I'll be around.
Oh, it is.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you guys vote.
Vote early.
Vote early.
Vote
before.
early and often.
So I will be around.
So I can basically, what we do is we'll do the 3 big budgets that we'll hopefully hit off on the 6th, since we're starting at 4. So obviously we'll have water and light. We can do wastewater and probably do library if you want, Ron.
All I have is
Not
questions.
Ron. I'm like Andy.
All I have is questions of generator. That's really my only question on the library, guys. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. And
You want me? I you know.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that are we replacing it just to replace it because we can? It's cheap, and what's the purpose of the generator at the library?
Okay, well, what I
that's
can
kind
do
of-
is I can reach out to Andy and I can say, you know, if you could email the alder person just a justification of, you know, why it's needed, how is it
Determined and-
determined and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
because otherwise I didn't.
And then if you're satisfied with that, you don't have to have them in, but if that generates more questions, then we can invite
At
them
least
to
it's
the.
15,000 cheaper, but yeah, otherwherwise their budget looked pretty flat.
I don't think bringing them in wouldn't be a bad idea.
You want to see them?
Well, the thing about it is we're setting the tone to,
yeah, you
in
know,
our city council meetings, we want to see department heads, right?
And we don't want to be it hostile, you know, we
Right.
want to invite people and encourage them, to see, you know.
I guess, and they can also
I don't even know who he is.
kind of shout out. There you go. You can meet Andy, and they can shout out.
Sure,
the good-
I only
The
met
good-
because of
yeah.
the solar panel.
Yeah, and you can shout out the good things or
Or
anything up and coming and what they've got going on over there.
Yeah.
Little
I think
shout
their
out.
their
And
big issue other than operations is, you know, their building needs that, you know, it's an aging building kind of like we have, and you know, they would like a building reserve fund, but like anything else, it's like, you know, it kind of goes in with all the priorities. And what we're really trying to do with our buildings is identify those priorities and kind of pick them off each year a little bit, you know, just like how we did the generators here, we did the bathrooms at the library this year. And so it's really getting those inventoried, prioritized, and then determining how we can start addressing some of these needs over a period of time, because obviously it's hard to, you know, address them all at once, but if we can start kind of chipping away at some of the building needs.
You know, and I hate to say, probably my biggest concern is I don't know if any of you guys have looked at the staffing over there. I guess I'm not a librarian, but there sure is a lot of staffing for $870,000, shy of $1 million.
I mean, it would be good to have.
I just noticed that with the.
I know, I just did too. I was like, whoa.
There's a lot of payroll, but I don't
There's
know.
a lot of there's a lot of managers. That's what I
I
see.
don't know anything about libraries at all.
No.
Don't you go? Or go to one?
Online, I buy my books on Amazon.
Oh.
I don't rent books, I buy them. I market them, so I can't bring them back.
Return them.
Like,
Yeah, they frown on that.
Because that's all. How much? I guess we can ask Andy too. What is coming out of the tax levy? Here we go.
Yeah, it should be down there. If you kind of go down, scroll down, you should see
we have
under revenues, they have their operating revenues, and then you'll see the property tax levy there.
I didn't go far enough. No, that's all the revenues. Here we go.
Yeah, it should be at the bottom there.
So,
last line item. So
we don't.
a lot of their money comes in from other sources. I don't know how I would.
Property tax 1.2 million.
Right.
You put in 1.2 million.
They're their operating revenues and coffee house revenues, but they're, you know, other than the city, they do get monies from Wood County to support the library.
Oh yeah.
That's, if you remember that resolution that we passed.
Yeah, that
exempts
that exempts.
city residents from the county library tax because they're already supporting it locally with their.
They take in
city
about
tax.
660,000 in revenues outside of the 1.2 million in property tax revenue.
So about, 2/3 would be levied.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I didn't realize it was that much.
Yeah, that's a big budget.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Coffee. What about other communities, how they fund and look at their libraries? Like Point and...
Point is funded by the county.
Yeah, there's mostly county, libraries are the responsibility of counties, but if a municipality has one, then they can kind of like, why we don't get, our residents will get taxed on it. But it's state law requires that counties are responsible for libraries.
But 1.2 million.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money for taxpayers.
But it is a great service. you know.
Absolutely.
So that maybe is just explanation. Maybe who knows how many customers they get on a daily basis. I got no idea. I go down there to make photocopies because I don't have a copy machine. that's it. So,
We don't have a Kinko's, so.
yeah, exactly.
250,000 patrons annually.
Wow.
Yeah, this seems like a lot of managers.
Yeah, I don't have any other ones here.
19 and a quarter employees there.
So we'll get them on, we'll have them here next week. If you can make it, otherwise we'll have them on the 13th, but hopefully.
Sounds good.
All right. And our third agenda item, I think, was already handled.
Yeah, 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock, November 6th.
Okay.
What are we gonna do till 11?
Well, the last one is motion to adjourn.
Gene's got a second.
I didn't make it. I said that's the last agenda item.
Oh yeah.
Is adjournment.
Who made the motion?
Nobody did.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
You die from lack of second.
Yeah, what do we do?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Do we just sit here and
hang out?
Technically, under the driver's rules of order, the meeting ends when there isn't a quorum anymore.
Oh, yeah, so you just get up and walk out.
Yeah.
So really, you don't even have to make a motion for adjournment.
I've never seen it. I've
Exactly.
yet to ever see a report here that this
Meeting
meeting ended because of lack of
Well, I
quorum.
don't want to be the one to walk out. You walk out.
We've had that.
Have we?
I think so. There's been.
I think some people had to leave
Yeah.
for something.
Yeah, I can't remember when that happened, but.
See,
And all of a sudden everybody's like,
So we're
"Well, I guess
adjourned?
we're done."
well,
We adjourned? Then Travis can go home.
well, only if you want a second.
I second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and we are adjourned.